Chapter 1267. The flow of time was always very fast. Unknowingly, a day had passed, and in the blink of an eye, a month had passed, followed by half a year, several years. Some beings who had no sense of time could even see thousands or even tens of thousands of years pass in the blink of an eye. This world would not miss out on anything just because someone was absent. Time continued to move forward as usual, and everything that should happen in this world would happen without exception. Although it was a long story, it had only been a month since Yin Nuo and the others had returned to the God realm. The void was still peaceful, and those who were immersed in peace were happy to enjoy this rare moment of peace. The people guarding the front lines of the void were still anxiously looking at the abyss of death mist not far away from them. Although it looked like nothing was happening, in reality, there were still disasters happening in certain parts of the void. Perhaps the abyss of death mist had already infiltrated the upper planes and engaged in an extremely fierce battle. It was just that they were unaware of it. The speed at which we're searching for the upper planes is still gradually increasing. In the past month or so, we've found over 10,000 worlds. Every day, we're able to find at least 4 or 5 worlds. However, as more and more world orbs are discovered, it's possible that we won't be able to find many more world orbs in the future. Right now, some Empyrean gods have been dispatched to the middle planes to begin searching for the middle planes that we haven't discovered yet. I Ching held a crystal ball and softly reported. Hui muttered to himself, his brow furrowed. The search for the world orbs that we have yet to discover is decreasing so quickly. According to his calculations, it would take some time before it would decrease. The void was so vast that it would not be empty so quickly. I Ching was silent for a moment, kept the crystal ball in his hand, and took out a new one from somewhere. He took a light breath and said, "The explorers, they have been searching at the edge of the upper planes for a long time. After passing through a blank area created by the void's self-activity, they thought that they would find a large number of world orbs, but what greeted them was a large number of fragments of world orbs. It was broken like a tomb, a mass grave, with no less than 1,000 world orbs buried. The fragments surrounded a large area of the void and kept collapsing. There were also fragments of world orbs streaking across the void at high speed like a comet. Those world orbs were destroyed only recently, and they also found traces of a violent battle there. There were remnants of high-level divine power, and also remnants of the abyssal death shroud's presence. It was basically something that happened in the past few months. When Hui heard this news, he knew that it was not a small matter. His body that was sitting cross-legged on the ground slowly straightened up a little. There is another news, the news that I am most concerned about. How is your investigation going? This? I Ching hesitated for a moment and changed to another crystal ball. He glanced at Hui and said softly, "The area of the void explored by the 169 teams extends from what we know of to the upper planes, past that blank area, past that mass grave, all the way to the middle planes and even into the middle planes. Just give me an answer quickly. I'm already mentally prepared." Hui waved his hand and interrupted his detailed report. "Yes, the result of the feedback is there are no new world orbs in the upper and middle planes. This phenomenon has been going on for at least 30,000 years, Hui said before he could finish. You know about it?" I Ching was slightly stunned. He had not read this information yet. When Hui told him the data, he saw the numbers at the back. It was indeed 30,000 years. Other than the upper and middle realms, there are also new world light orbs born at the edge of the lower realms. However, there are very few of them. In a huge area of the void, there may only be a few world light orbs born here and there. When compared to the size of the entire void, it could be described as a thin world. I know. Let's not talk about this first. In the area of the mass grave, are there any other discoveries? Anything special? Anything will do. Don't miss out on any details. I Ching frowned slightly. He rummaged in his pocket for a moment and took out a diamond-shaped azure crystal. But their feedback is not clear. I have sorted out a part of it. What is certain is that those world shards were destroyed by the abyssal death shroud, or beings of a higher plane. Rules and order are torn and tattered, and there is not a single place that is intact. The calm sea of time is surging with turbulent waves. In short, the void is very unstable, and the void space would be exposed from time to time. As for those world shards, I have carefully investigated them a few times according to your request. The original order and rules left in them seem to have been distorted and were deliberately distorted in a certain direction. Perhaps it was the underworld's people who used them for something, but there are no traces of modification, and I cannot find out what they did to those world shards. Also, those world shards do not seem to dissipate so easily after being modified, and from the way they are drifting in the void, they may collide. Collide? Hui immediately remembered the situation that Yin Nuashing had told him, and nodded. All right, I understand. I Ching then told him some details about the abyssal death shroud and the underworld. Most of what he said was a little repetitive, but he could not help but sigh when he reached another part. Those people who fought against us in the void a month ago, I'm sorry, but we cannot find where they are. The situation in the void front lines has not changed either. The ancient royal family had arranged for some Empyrean gods of origin who are adept at disguise and concealment to hide in the void front lines, but we have not found anything yet. The fish did not take the bait because we have not prepared the bait yet. However, now is not the best time to cast the net. Let's talk about those annoying things later. We have more important things to do right now, Hui said in a low voice as he looked ahead. It was a space that was immersed in golden light. It was a huge square, and the floor was paved with dark yellow stone bricks. There were circles of silver-white pillars that were about 10,000 feet tall in the square, and the pillars were engraved with golden runes and charms. The dark yellow energy that flowed through the tiles would flow into the pillars, into the charms and runes, and then flow along the thick chains that hung between the pillars to other places. Everything in the square seemed to be a huge whole. Looking at it from a distance, it felt heavy. There was an indescribable aura that gathered in this place, and just looking at it would suffocate anyone. I Ching put down the crystal in his hand and waved his hand to inject energy into the energy barrier outside the square. When he saw Hui nodding, he stopped and looked around the square. This was something he did not understand. The runes and charms that were engraved on the pillars, the circles of pillars that seemed to be arranged in a specific pattern, and the golden chains that connected them together. He could not understand what they were doing. The only thing he recognized was the energy that flowed throughout the square. It was the power of time. A huge amount of time power gathered here to suppress the void and order. Without the series of protective measures here, the void and other factors here would have collapsed before Lord Hui could do anything. I Ching did not understand these things and did not ask out of curiosity. He saw Hui's solemn and focused look and bowed. If that's the case, I won't disturb you. I'll keep an eye on the void front line. If there's anything, I'll inform you at once. Okay. Hui nodded slightly and made a sound from his throat as a response. Seeing that, I Ching respectfully left the space. After I Ching left for a while, the barrier trembled slightly, and a brilliant golden light slowly descended. Accompanied by a sacred whisper, a figure quietly emerged from the space. It looked at the space, glanced at Hui, and then looked at the position of the magic circle where he sat cross-legged and said, "Are you ready?" Hui smiled bitterly and shook his head. "It's not that fast. Feng's not here, and it's much slower for me to do it alone. Now it's only 80% done. But if there's an emergency, this 80% should be enough. The rest is just a matter of success rate, and it will only affect the number of timelines that can be drawn." The little angel slowly walked behind Hui and looked up at a pillar that was tens of thousands of feet tall. The entire body of the pillar seemed to be gilded, and it was entirely forged by the power of time. At the moment, it was halfway done, and the top of the pillar was constantly stretching upwards. From the perspective of this position, every bit of movement was a distance of a few meters or dozens of meters. Also in a state of being completed was the faintly discernible magic circle beneath their feet. I Ching did not notice that just now. The magic circle was carved into the ground, and every place where the pillar stood was a key point of the magic circle. The heart of the magic circle was naturally the giant pillar that was tens of thousands of feet tall. Far away from the heart of the magic circle, there was a huge circle that surrounded the heart of the magic circle. The circle had a circle that was the size of a person drawn on the four corners of the circle, with complex patterns carved inside. We was sitting on one of the circles. Originally, this magic circle should be activated by 4 people together, but Maple and I are a little special. Just the 2 of us will be enough. At most, it will be a little tiring after the event. Well, considering the importance of this matter, I can't find 2 reliable and powerful people to help me in a short period of time. Hui sighed helplessly. His eyes faintly looked at the little angel that was looking around and shrugged. Noticing Huey's gaze, it scratched its head and said, "I can help too. There's no requirement for an even number of people, right? There's no such requirement. The limit is 4 people. If one person has enough power, he or she can also activate this magic circle alone. If it's you, with your relationship with Maple, you're very reliable. But you can't help with this." Hui shook his head helplessly. "Why?" it asked, puzzled. After all, Hui hesitated for a moment and raised his head to look at it. After thinking for a while, he said honestly, "After all, you're a life that was born from the death mist of the abyss. There will be some conflict with the power of order here. Especially this time, we need to borrow the energy left behind by the great heavenly god of origin and the others. It's even more impossible for you to come into contact with it." The little angel froze and looked at him a little blankly. "You knew? You knew all along?" "I knew it the day Maple brought you back. The barrier of the realm of the gods gave me a warning. At that time, I already knew. Plus, my partner came back from that place. It only took a little guess for me to understand everything." Hui shrugged and saw a little panic in the little angel's eyes. He could not help but smile. "It doesn't matter. Things like identity, do you think we'd care about that? Although you're a special individual from the death mist of the abyss, you've never released that kind of power that would destroy the balance. You're on par with Maple's element of extinction. I'm not worried that either of you would accidentally come into contact with the other one day. The point is, I can feel that you're harmless, so I don't want to bother with you." The little angel nodded blankly. She flapped her wings a few times unconsciously and shrugged. "Well, if you find out, then so be it. Don't think that I was born from the death mist of the abyss. Actually, I'm quite weak. I have the strength of this body, but I can't use it well." Hui was stunned as well. It was not what he had imagined. He thought that a rare life form born from that place would be somewhat special. My creators seem to be trying to create something similar to me, but they don't know that they've already created one and are still busy in the void. The world shards that I Ching told you about would eventually collide are probably used for this purpose. Other than that, I don't have any more clues. I don't know what they're trying to do. Hui felt a little awkward and scratched his head in confusion. Those are your creators. Is it okay to just say it like that? Personally, I don't think there's anything to be concerned about. They're them, and I'm me. I've told them about this many times." It shrugged. Its face relaxed as if it was not faked. "All right, let's not talk about this for now. How's the situation on your side?" Maple, at the mention of that, the little angel's expression changed slightly as it shook its head worriedly. "The power of divine destruction has been withdrawn. It's just that his soul is still in a wondrous state of slumber. I can feel that his divinity and soul have recovered a lot. He'll be back to his strongest state in another month, but he still can't wake up. It's probably like what you said." We let out a long sigh and felt a headache coming on. Coming into contact with the origin god blood. Where exactly was that dream going to take Maple? He still couldn't understand. These days, in addition to setting up the array here, he also searched in the depths of the concept layer for a long time, but he didn't find anything. Right now, we can only pray that that fellow is safe. Sigh, old fellow really makes people worry. We tap his head with a headache. Pray. Its golden eyes flickered slightly as its eyelids drooped slightly. He'll be fine. From all aspects, he would be fine. We naturally could not understand the deeper meaning of that, and only took it as a consolation. In the darkness, a faint blue light flickered and appeared in front of his eyes. It was like a light in the night, guiding the direction of those who were hurrying in the dark. It was absolute darkness all around. Other than that light and himself, nothing else could be seen. Yin Nuashing sighed and walked towards that light. For the past month, he had been in a very troublesome situation. He did not know how many times he had walked this dark path. Every once in a while, he would escape from this dark, hopeless situation and return to that orange land to have a good fight with the four giants. Of course, it was usually the four giants who had a good fight, while Yin Nuashing was basically the kind who was pressed to the ground and beaten up. Every once in a while, the battle would end. How long did it take? He didn't know. He didn't know. He was a little numb. He didn't even know how much time had passed. He just kept repeating the same thing. Fighting, hurrying, fighting, chasing, fighting. Just like this time, he still walked forward numbly. He had deviated from the path that time many times. It seemed that he had walked to another place, but it also seemed that he had not. In this endless darkness, he would only see that light if he followed it. If he did not follow it, he would only see a sea of golden lights like fireflies. There was no other way. So dry, so boring. Yin Nuashing let out a long sigh. He did not know how long it had been. A period of time, and another period of time. The clothes on his body were a little messy. Fortunately, the quality was good. If he changed into ordinary clothes, he would be naked after 2 or 3 rounds of intense battles. He walked forward numbly. 10 million steps, 100 million steps, or how many steps he could not remember. He just walked numbly. Sometimes when he fell to the ground, he thought that he might as well just sleep like this. He looked at the endless darkness in front of him and sat on the ground in boredom. His eyes were dull. When would this path end? Chapter 1268. Eternity. This was a very simple word, but it could be divided into dozens of things and things. Its meaning was profound and profound. For mortals, perhaps tens of thousands of years could be called eternity, but for gods, especially those young gods, 100 million years or 100 billion years might be eternity. For gods, this word had no simple meaning. After another great battle, Yin Nuashing sat cross-legged in the dark space. Looking at the faint blue light in front of him, he slowly closed his eyes and involuntarily thought of this word. It might not have any special meaning to him. He had experienced nearly 100 eras. Not counting the broken memories and other things that he couldn't recall, he had at least 70 eras of memories. He had some memories of the mortal world, but most of them were memories of the 6th and 7th Yuan realms, which didn't seem to be much different from his experience in the 8th Yuan realm. The fragmented memories of the 8th Yuan realm alone were 70 eras. Most of the time, he wouldn't recall those parts. That long memory was divided into many parts and stored in the sea of memory. Every once in a while, he needed to sort it out so that his memory wouldn't be confused and muddled into a pile of mud. However, this period of time was indeed a period of time. It was only a period of time that could only be sorted out once in an epoch. After thousands of years of reincarnation and hundreds of millions of reincarnations, that heavy time and heavy memory really made him feel the breath of eternity. Perhaps no one in the entire void was as exaggerated as he was. As for why he thought of this, Yin Nuashing opened his eyes and stood up with his hands on the ground. He took a deep breath and exhaled. It was nothing. He just suddenly thought of something. This long road was like a reincarnation cycle. It was endless. It was as if he was going to spend his entire life here. It was as if he was going to walk through the hundreds of millions of lives he had lived. It was as if he was going to start all over again. It was as if he was going to examine this long road of epochs. It's very heavy. He lowered his eyelids slightly and sighed softly. This was why he sat here and sighed for a long time. He hadn't looked back for a long time. At this time, when he looked back at the memories of nearly 100 eras and 70 eras, he felt very heavy. Countless scenes of the past rushed into his mind, making him feel as if a bottle of mixed feelings had been overturned in his heart. Yin Nuashing let out a long sigh. He shook his head and waved away those memories. He tore the beautiful dreams and memories of the past into pieces. He lifted his feet and fearlessly walked towards the eternal and profound darkness and destruction. He no longer thought about the past. He had long forgotten to think about the past. He had long forgotten about the past. He had long forgotten about the past. He had long forgotten about the past. That's all there is to it. If this place was some kind of trial similar to the mental journey, this was his answer. He walked towards the faint blue light and slowly ran. This was his choice and his answer. No matter how many times, no matter how many times it was repeated, no matter how many times it was reincarnated, he would only continue to move forward. Just like how he had struggled for dozens of eras, he never gave up. There were things in his heart that he couldn't give up and things that he couldn't let go of. He had already made up his mind on the day he stepped into the reincarnation road. He couldn't stop here. Then what about you? Yin Nuoshing suddenly raised his head and looked at the endless dark space. His gaze seemed to have focused on something, as if he had seen someone. What is your choice? What kind of obsession is it that keeps you struggling to live on, that keeps you going through this endless time? Where are you now? What are you doing? He didn't know who he was talking to. It was as if he had gone crazy. He came to this strange space and felt that someone was monitoring everything here. He talked to whoever it was, as if it was a matter of course. He didn't expect a response, nor did he think that there would be one. Actually he knew. After walking for such a long time, it was impossible for him not to sense it. He knew why this space existed and where it came from. Look, this endless dream, battle, and darkness. Only these two parts were so similar. It was so similar to his life, this life after life, battle, destruction, nonstop battle, nonstop destruction, nonstop struggle. In the end, everything returned to zero, falling into a long period of oblivion, waiting for the day when he would come back again, and once again, he would fight again. He hadn't seriously thought about this before. Now that he thought about it, it was really lamentable. After such a long time that was close to eternity, what was branded in his soul was actually darkness and battle. This was the meaning of his existence. This was what he had to face in his existence. In this life, other than moving forward and continuing to fight, there was nothing else. For what? God knew. These things could go to hell. He just needed to continue like this and continue to move forward. He wouldn't feel regret in his heart. Even if he missed something, he wouldn't feel regret. Even if there was only one ending at the front of the road, it didn't matter. Just like this, slowly, little by little, he moved forward. The time matrix and the array are ready. The rest can only be continued after the old man wakes up. Hui stretched himself and looked at the huge square in front of him. The giant pillars were flowing with the roaring power of time. A large amount of the power of time floated out of the sea of time, like fireflies, and gathered in this time square. Clusters of dark yellow energy light circled around each pillar and the pillar in the center like little elves. They circled around the pillar every 3 minutes. These little things only had a weak spiritual intelligence. They were used to monitor the situation of each time pillar and also to maintain their stability. When they detected any problems, they could suppress them as quickly as possible. Those pillars and the array of time were the most important things in this time square. Before the time axis resonance was launched, no damage could be done. Lord Hui, a call interrupted Huey's contemplation. He turned around and saw I Ching coming from the edge of the barrier with 3 or 4 crystal balls. When he saw the time square surging with a huge amount of power, he could not help but be stunned for a moment. Then he asked in surprise, Lord Hui, has it been successful? Hui smiled and nodded. It's finally done. It took a lot of effort. It's really difficult. Let's not talk about this first. How are things on your side? I Ching recovered from his faint excitement and bowed respectfully. Yes, I've sent the explorers deeper into the void these few days. Just as Lord Hui said, we've discovered some small problems, and we've seen them happen with our own eyes. Oh, then you're lucky. Tell me in detail. Hui looked at him with a little surprise and nodded. The place where the explorers went was beyond the borders of the lower plane that we know of. As they went deeper, the area we found gradually increased. We also saw many world lights, almost all of which were born in the past 100 billion years. Those old worlds that were born were either destroyed automatically when their time limit was up or destroyed by someone. Since that place was not far from the borders that we know of, I think that the worlds that should have existed were destroyed by the underworld. What's left are all new world lights that were born in the void after millions of years. As for further places, I Ching was silent for a while. Seeing Huey's face slowly become serious, he was also startled. He hurriedly organized his words, pondered for a while, and said, "In further places, we found many strange aggregations of worlds. According to the information you gave us, those are probably the underworld's little tricks. We can't analyze them, and we can't understand them. Because we were worried that the underworld's people would come to those places to patrol, we just observed from afar for a while before moving to another place. I have a general idea of what the underworld is using the aggregations of those broken worlds for. I just didn't expect that even the lower plane would be affected. It seems that there really aren't many safe zones in the void." We tapped his chin. Apart from that, the explorers saw something even further away in the void. They saw the beginning and end of something. As I Ching spoke, he flipped through the few crystal balls in his hand. Those strange aggregations were also found in the depths of the void far away, and the completion rate is the highest that we have seen so far. I guess they have been planning to do these things since a long time ago. As he spoke, he finally found the information he was looking for. He showed a remnant image in front of Hui. The latter just took a glance and frowned. In the image, it was a large cluster of worlds that were gradually merging. The death fog of the abyss lingered in those broken world lights, as if it was breathing. It was like a huge heart, and something was gestating in it, trying to break out of its shell. Huey's brow tightened. Even through the image, he could feel that there was an extremely powerful life form gestating in it. It was probably a life form like the little angel, but the process seemed to be a little different from how it was born and different from what it said, and it did not succeed. After the image lasted for dozens of seconds, something was approaching from the depths of the void. Like a shadow, it was cast on the aggregation of broken worlds. Then, the thing that was still intact suddenly seemed to be damaged and began to disintegrate from the edges, turning into black particles inch by inch, slowly crumbling and being consumed by the void. After a tenth of the edges disappeared, the shadow was cast on its main body. The entire huge aggregation was like an orange that was brutally pinched, becoming abnormally distorted. Its shell crumbled, and a bright cluster of light was exposed at its center. He could feel the unusually dense life force, even through the image. It was indeed a life form, and a very powerful one at that. It was the most powerful of all the abyssal death fog spawns he had ever seen. But before it could break out of its shell, the shadow had mercilessly crushed it, and the entire aggregation of broken worlds instantly fell apart, turning into dregs that dissipated into the void. That sudden scene had startled the explorer who was recording the image at the time, as well as Hui. It's a very sudden phenomenon that we can't explain now, and we have no idea what happened at the beginning. Later, we tried to touch the shadow, and it was very clear in the void that it was a shadow, something like a shadow. Anything that touches it would begin to disintegrate from its roots. We used energy to test it, and that's it. There's nothing hard to explain. Hui turned and looked at the Times Square, a little lost in thought, and muttered as if to himself, "The will of destruction that exists in the depths of the void, that's just a tendency of the void's activity, and it has shown its tendency to destroy to you and I. No, it's not like that. It's just wiping out some existences. It doesn't matter if it's intentional or not. As long as something exists there, it will destroy it." We took a deep breath. Calculating the time, it's really coming soon. I Ching was confused and scratched his head in puzzlement. "Well, Lord Hui, forgive my ignorance. What is that shadow? Do you know? It's not a thing. It's a symbol of the void's self-activity that collapses. It's the footsteps of the void's activity, and it's slowly approaching." Seeing that I Ching was still confused, Hui shook his head helplessly. 11 eras ago, the collective fall of the great heavenly gods of origin caused a huge void tremor, destroying 99% of the life in the void at that time. Almost nothing survived, and even the divine realm was almost shattered into dust. After the fall of the great heavenly gods, something was missing in the laws of the void, and the void's activity deviated a little. It could no longer complete its self-cycle, and if it continued to operate, it would keep accumulating the various collapsing errors in the void, various anomalies. When these errors accumulate to a certain extent, it would trigger another void tremor. That's right, it's just as you think. When that time comes, the void would explode again, and nothing would be left behind except for a few unique things. I Ching was stunned and could not say anything for a long time. Could it be that the shadow we saw is the footsteps of the void tremor that's constantly approaching? It's probably the sound of snoring. It's the footsteps. You don't have to pay attention to what I'm saying. We rubbed his bangs and said, well, it's some kind of good news. The underworld likes to play tricks in the depths of the void, and they definitely did not calculate that the void tremor would happen again. The things they set up in the depths of the void are the easiest to be affected. Good news. I Ching could not help but smile bitterly. That was the void tremor they were talking about. Even if they could clear out part of the underworld arrangements, the final result of this natural activity in the void would be the collapse of the entire void. We knew what I Ching was thinking when he saw the bitter smile on I Ching's face. He could not help but shake his head and put his hand on I Ching's shoulder. He grinned and said, don't worry, the realm of the gods is protected. If it could withstand the void tremor last time, it will naturally be able to withstand the void tremor this time. I Ching had just pulled himself together when Huey's expression changed slightly, revealing a troubled look. But when the underworld invades, the barrier might break, and then we won't be able to withstand the void tremor. Cough, but it's okay. We have the entire void buried with us. This is the highest standard funeral in the history of the Dayuan realm. No, it's the second highest standard funeral. I Ching suddenly felt weak all over and couldn't help but shake his head with a bitter smile. However, after being interrupted by Huey's joke, his somewhat gloomy mood recovered a little. He asked seriously, Lord Hui, what should we do now? Do what you should do. What I told you to do in the beginning is what I want you to do. It hasn't changed since the beginning. Hui patted I Ching's shoulder and smiled. As he spoke, he turned his head and let out a long sigh. He clasped his hands behind his back and looked at the huge magic array that was constantly operating, perfecting, and maintaining itself. His hands were trembling slightly. He let out a long sigh and said, what will happen soon will be the most spectacular and chaotic thing in the Dayuan realm. It will be our last resort. Although the time-descending formation can maintain the stability of the Sea of Time to the greatest extent, there will still be some impact, and it can't be completely eliminated. I don't know what will happen in the end, and I can't say for sure. I Ching saw that Huey's hands were trembling slightly behind his back. He opened his mouth a few times, but did not know what to say. He lowered his head and clenched his fists. Just as he was about to speak, Huey's eyes lit up, and he said calmly, but we have to try no matter what. We have come to this situation, and the troublemaker who is driving this situation, he risked his life in exchange for this. He has already done his best. If I can't take this blow from him and do the rest well, I might as well jump into reincarnation myself. Lord Hui, we will also stay by your side and do our best. I Ching suddenly said loudly, no matter what the outcome is, no matter what we have to face, we will not back down. The only thing that won't change is this fact. Hui turned his head and looked at the young heavenly god of origin. He smiled and said, all right, little guy, go. You're still too young. Don't think about failure. Just as you said, just do your best. I Ching bowed and disappeared in a flash. Hui let out a long sigh. As soon as he sat down, he felt some movement behind him. He could not help but raise his eyebrows and said jokingly, why do you always come right after that little guy leaves? Someone has been here, he said casually and did not comment. He looked at the Times Square in the distance and said, is everything ready? Everything is ready. We're just waiting for the old guy. The situation is not good. The light of his divine spirit is showing signs of dimming. As soon as he finished speaking, he saw him do a backflip. His whole body was frozen in front of him, and he was looking at him with frightened eyes. He could not help but sigh and clench his arms. I have no choice. I came to find you. Then let's go and see how the old guy is doing. Hui cried out loudly and hurriedly opened the teleportation door and rushed towards the building where Yin Noah's star was. The little angel was stunned for a second. Looking at the formation in front of him, he could not help but smile bitterly. You are really? Why do you have to do this? Before you can escape from a whirlpool, you are already sucked into an even bigger whirlpool. There is no escape. You have been like this in your previous life and your future life. Observer, is this your destiny? You can only keep moving forward and cannot retreat. You can never retreat, even if you know that the end of the path is death. Even at the last moment, you can only release the most brilliant fireworks. Even so, won't you regret it? Have you never regretted it? He smiled bitterly. He knew the answer, but he could not help but sigh for him. Chapter 1269. There was a powerful divine power flowing in the building that did not fit in with the mountain and forest. Hui was walking around, yin nuashing, with the Book of Epics in his arms. From time to time, he would carve golden charms and runes in the void. Every time there was an additional rune, the divine power would become more active. Judging from the results, my partner should still be trapped in that dream. And from the looks of it, he is probably sinking deeper and deeper. Speaking of bad news, whether it is this accident or his subjectivity, they're all actively extending into the depths of the dream. It is as if my partner does not want to wake up. Why? She looked at the sleeping guy on the bed in confusion. His cheeks were peaceful, and he was so quiet that it was as if he had entered a normal dreamland. Who would have thought that the soul of the person lying here was fading bit by bit? If he was allowed to continue sinking deeper, he might never wake up. Good question. I also want to know why. Hui turned around and sat on the bed with a headache. He shook his head in distress. It is probably because of my partner. Who knows what he is thinking? He probably has his own reasons for doing this. But I am worried that he will gradually lose himself and eventually not be able to come out, he said thoughtfully. He glanced at the worried little angel beside him. She sensed his gaze and turned to look at him. Do you have any ideas? I do have a way, but it is a little risky. And this method needs you to do it. Hui nodded and waved his hand to gather the charms and runes scattered around. They merged into a ball of golden water and slowly fell on Yin Nuashing. However, it did not really fall on him. The golden water surrounded Yin Nuashing and finally condensed into a pure golden cuboid, freezing him in it. Hui waved his hand and let the Book of Epics float into the golden cuboid ice. He looked at it and said, Dream Palace. Regardless of a name, I can send you into Maple's dream. But you already know that Maple was involved in a nightmare because of the divine blood. If you go in with him, it means that you are also... That means the worst result may be that both of you will be trapped inside and unable to get out. The little angel was silent for a moment. She stroked the golden ice coffin with a helpless smile on her face. We can't just leave him like this. It is a little cruel to say that it has nothing to do with me. This world still needs him, doesn't it? Your plan, your efforts, all of them need his participation. I don't know if I can pull him back, but let's give it a try. Hui nodded. Let's not talk too much. Let's begin. This dream palace is the channel of the dream resonance. You only need to use your spirit to enter his dream. Go to the deepest part of his dream and find him. Go find him and pull him back from the deepest part of his dream. The little angel nodded slightly. She pressed her palm on the dream palace above his head, and her spirit surged slightly. You. Hui gritted his teeth and took a deep breath. All of you must come back safely. I will do my best to maintain the dream palace, but it will only last for 10 days at most. Before the time is up, regardless of the result, you should come out. Otherwise, you will be trapped in his dream forever and become a wandering consciousness in his spiritual sea. I will try my best. She took a deep breath and nodded. Her spirit surged and entered Yin Nuashing's mind. She lay on the bed weakly and melted into the dream palace. Old friend, you are really a troublesome fellow. Hui saw that she had entered his dream, without hesitation and could not help but laugh bitterly. Before entering this dream, the little angel had already prepared herself mentally. She had imagined countless scenarios. However, when she opened her eyes and saw an endless dark space, she could not help but be slightly stunned. She could not help but frown. This was very similar to one of her nightmares. The endless darkness was the scene in the deepest part of her heart. Just by looking at this scene, she could confirm that this was indeed her dream. Moreover, this deep darkness made her feel a little uncomfortable. Then next, she took a deep breath and stretched. Where should I go? If it is him, where would he be hiding in this nightmare? How long has it been? Yin lifted her foot numbly and took a step forward. Her footsteps were a little weak. At this moment, a gust of wind would probably blow her away. She might not be able to get up again if she fell. Even a soul would feel tired at times, especially when she had been repeating the same thing over and over again for an eternity. She had long become numb, as if she had lost her sense of self. Her rationality was gradually collapsing. She had long forgotten the persistence she had when she first entered this place. She had long forgotten what she was persevering for. She could only numbly repeat the action of lifting her feet. There were times when even a god's will would be worn out, especially for a god like her whose spirit was still in a weak state and whose heart was slightly shrouded in darkness. Perhaps this was not right. If it were another god who had experienced what she had experienced in this place, they would have also become like her 1-2 billion. Probably. Yin lightly took a step down and froze on the spot. Was this the first time he had counted to this number? Or had he already counted to the second time? Or was it actually the third time, or even more? The orange-red land had disappeared for a long time. Now, he actually missed the four giants. The scene had not changed. No matter where he went or what he did, there was no other phenomenon. In the endless darkness, there was only a faint blue light. The orange-red land and the golden sea of light had disappeared for a long, long time. It had been so long that he could not remember if he had seen such a scene before. Perhaps it was all an illusion. Then why was she in this place? She wanted to go back. There were still many things she had not done. There were many, many things she had to deal with. What was it? What was she going to do? What was she going to do? Her eyes became a little blurry. Yin raised her trembling hands and looked down at them. She was a little lost. He seemed to have forgotten many things. He seemed to still remember many things. What were those things? Who was he? Who were they? What was he doing here? No, stay away from me. Who are you? Yin body trembled faintly. A large number of meaningless images that seemed to contain some very important information flashed past her eyes. Many people, many things, everything flashed past her eyes. It seemed that something had really flashed past her in this darkness, confusing her vision and destroying her spirit that was already on the verge of collapse. No, it doesn't exist. Hope, nothing exists. It's not real. You are all illusions. Yin covered his head in pain. What little rationality he had left and the fire of spirit that was about to extinguish held on to his final reality. That was all. It was basically impossible for him to wake up completely. Most of him should be running away. Perhaps he had already believed that this was a space that he could never break free from. That was why he had closed himself up from the bottom of his heart. Sometimes, running away was also a choice. But it was really ironic. He should have been moving forward fearlessly. Not long ago, probably not long ago, he had said it. Now, he had started to run away. He was running away from this reincarnation that seemed to be impossible to break free from. The blue light gradually extinguished as his body touched it. Another blue light of the same size appeared not far away. Just as he had said, just as he had thought, everything that he was experiencing now seemed to have no end. This feeling made him inadvertently recall the situation on the path of reincarnation. The river that he had crossed, the road that he had walked on. Had his thoughts drifted so far away? When did he start to miss that place? Endless reincarnation. Keep going. Keep going. Darkness. Eternal. Darkness. Can't stop. Don't stop thinking. Like a martyr who had lost himself, His body swayed as he walked towards the destruction in front of him. When the little angel found him and saw him, this was her first impression. He seemed to have died. Only an indestructible will was left to push this body forward. The little angel was stunned. That high-spirited and somewhat crazy guy had actually been destroyed to this extent. She couldn't believe it. She didn't even dare to recognize this gray-white guy. He didn't seem like the person she knew. How did you become like this? She felt a lump in her throat and hurriedly walked in front of him. However, he acted as if he didn't see her and walked forward blindly and numbly. Forward. Protect. Forward. Keep going. Destroy. Destroy. Everything. Who are you? Who are you? I should keep going. That's right. Keep going. The little angel couldn't help but cover her mouth when she heard this murmur. Her eyes were slightly red. She hurriedly followed him and grabbed his hand. Boom! A huge wave of sadness, numbness, coldness, and deathly stillness surged into her mind. Countless of his thoughts and emotions poured into her mind like a river of stars. She seemed to see the moment when a colorful world began to wither. That world began to fall apart and lose its color. Life gradually disappeared and the stars dimmed. In the end, everything returned to silence. Not a single ripple appeared. She gritted her teeth. Her spirit was impacted and her hand almost loosened. Ah, that heavy heart, that heavy memory. It had only been a month in the outside world, but how long had he been wandering around here? There was no beginning and no end. He wandered in this darkness and fought on this orange-red land without rest. If it was anyone else, they would have already sunk into the deathly stillness. How did he hold on? What kind of obsession allowed him to hold on until now? You. I remember you. You're a little familiar. It's you. Who are you? Yin Nuoxing's empty eyes suddenly paused on the little angel. Those grayish-white eyes seemed to be alive for a moment and then fell silent in an instant. It was as if nothing had happened. The murmuring seemed to be an illusion. I am. She opened her mouth and was stunned. Who was she? She wasn't given a name. She had just used someone else. She had used the face of her loved ones in her memory and the body of her little angel sister. Until now, she had finally woken up. Who was she? Ah, it's you. I remember you. That dark and empty space. I remember now. It's you. But I can't remember. I can't remember clearly. Yin Nuoxing's eyes flickered slightly. That part of her sealed self seemed to be waking up. Her eyes lit up slightly, and she was slightly happy. However, this happiness did not last for long. That little bit of light dimmed again. She shook her head as if she had understood something. No, this darkness. There's no hope. No, it's all an illusion. Ah, I should have understood long ago. Yes, she stubbornly thought that she had encountered an illusion. Her consciousness, which had woken up for a moment, dimmed again. She turned around and continued to walk forward in a daze. However, this time, she did not manage to break free from the hand that was holding her. Her footsteps paused. She even subconsciously lifted her foot, but she was only walking on the same spot. A vein popped out on the forehead of the little angel. She gritted her teeth and said, "Oh, I forgot. Hoping that you would wake up on your own is really a luxurious and unrealistic thought. I knew it long ago." Sure enough, that's probably the fastest way to wake you up. She gritted her teeth and pressed her hands on his shoulders to turn him around. Then she took a deep breath, raised her head, and slammed it into Yin Nuoxing's forehead. Dong! A winter melon smashing a watermelon. This was probably the scene. In any case, the little angel felt that tears were about to burst out of her eyes. She saw stars from the collision. She was dizzy and swayed on the spot. Goo familiar strength. Yin Nuoxing finally woke up for a moment. Then, she rolled her eyes and fell to the ground. When she regained her consciousness, she realized that he had been knocked unconscious by her headbutt. That's not right. I saw that Ming hadn't fainted yet. She was slightly stunned. She rubbed her red forehead and shook her head helplessly. She knelt down beside him and hesitated for a moment. Then, she reached out and moved his head on her lap. Then, she lowered her head and touched his forehead with her forehead. Idiot, it's too troublesome for you to think about those things. Sometimes, just be a little more casual. Just be casual. Don't think too much. Don't think too much. If it works, it's fine. If it doesn't, it's fine. Why don't you force yourself to do it? I know. I know your obsession. But that's not a reason for you to ignore everything about yourself, stupid little star. She looked at the faint blue light not far away and could not help but sigh. She murmured, "We'll get out of here. We'll definitely wake you up. I believe in you, so you have to believe in me too." Chapter 1270. So, this is the main reason why you knocked me out with your brain? It took about 3 days for Yun Nuashing to wake up. It was 3 days in this dark space. The flow of time in this space was very different from that in the real world, so much so that it was a little scary. Otherwise, Yun Nuashing would not have been so sleepy. It took him a lot of effort to wake up, but compared to the previous process, it was already very fast. He did not know how long he had been wandering in this godforsaken place before he fell into a state of chaos. After being knocked on the head by the angel, he recovered 3 days later. Yun Nuashing still remembered the time when he lost consciousness. He was muddle-headed like a walking corpse in this dark space. When he woke up and heard the apologetic explanation from the little angel, Yun Nuashing did not know whether to laugh or cry. He did not feel anything when he was hit by the angel's head. There was a red mark on his forehead, and he could not remember the pain he felt that day. Well, anyway, thank you for your brain. I'm finally alive. The little angel was pressing her forehead against his. When she heard what he said, she just nodded her chin casually. Then, she felt that something was not right and raised her head. Finally, what do you mean? Do you still remember what happened back then? Barely. Yun Nuashing let out a long sigh of relief, and his eyes seemed to have lost focus again. That long period of time. So long, now that I think about it. It might have felt like tens of millions of years. I'm not too sure either. My sense of time has always been a little slow, and most probably it gave me that feeling, that kind of aimless wandering that would never end, that would never usher in tomorrow, wandering and wandering. I sealed myself off without even knowing it. The little angel was silent for a while. She poked his forehead with her jade-like hand. Such a bad memory. You should get rid of it as soon as possible. Then, how did you wake up later? Yun Nuashing rolled his eyes. Weren't you the one who woke me up with a headbutt? Have you forgotten? It turned its head away awkwardly. Ah, of course, that was only half a joke. Yun Nuashing smiled and said, in the end, you were the one who woke me up. It was probably because I finally saw someone else and realized that it was someone I knew, so I woke up much faster than I thought. Hey, you said I was an illusion or something. It rolled its eyes at him. Ah, after all, I've been wandering in this dark and hopeless place for so long. My remaining weak consciousness only has the greatest vigilance. I can't tell whether it's an illusion or something else, so I just treated it as an illusion. Yun Nuashing smiled helplessly. Then, her expression turned serious. Let's not talk about this first. How did you get in? This nightmare has extremely powerful restrictions. I've tried countless methods during this long period of time, but none of them worked. Your old buddy brought me in. It hesitated for a moment and told him what happened outside. I found that your soul had dimmed, so I went to call him. Then he made a dream-building palace and sent me in. Yun Nuashing's expression changed slightly. He obviously knew about this method, and he only knew that there was only a 10-day time limit. However, when she thought that it risked using this method because of her, she did not want to use a tough tone. Why didn't I know that you also like to risk your life? We should have told you about the consequences of using this method. There's no other way. Looking at your state, I'm also worried. Instead of worrying blindly outside, it's better to come in and take a look. It could not help but laugh bitterly. Then, it raised its head and gently knocked his head with its forehead. Isn't it all because of your influence? One is marked by the company one keeps. One is blackened by the company one keeps. One is crazy when one is near a star. Zian was completely right. Yun Nuashing said, "Can we not mention this?" That's the truth. It's very important. After that, the two of them did not say anything. Yun Nuashing closed her eyes slightly. Her pretty face was still a little pale. She curled up in the arms of the little angel with a pair of huge wings tightly wrapped around her. She did not feel that anything was wrong. It was as if the person in her arms was not the Empyrean god of origin who controlled the life and death of countless worlds, but a frightened child who needed to be comforted. After waiting for a long time, Yun Nuoxing finally regained his senses. He took a deep breath and pulled the little angel to stand up. He said, "Let's go." You've rested well?" She pulled Hao Ren's hand and slightly tightened her grip. "There's still a lot of time. You don't have to rush. You can rest more. The flow of time outside is completely different from here. We should still have a lot of time." Yun Nuoxing shook her head. "It's time to move forward, and I've rested well. Don't worry." Hearing this, the little angel's expression changed slightly. She could not help but say, "Moving forward. Is this your deepest obsession? Even when you're in that state, you still choose to move forward." Yin Nuoxing's body trembled slightly. She raised her head and thought for a moment. After a while, she tilted her head and looked at the little angel with a helpless smile on her face. "After all, that's the only thing I can do in my life of dozens of years. Moving forward, constantly moving forward. There's no problem in any way. As long as I keep moving forward, no matter where I end up, Seeing Hao Ren's determined expression, the little angel did not say anything. After all, this was his answer, and it really matched his answer. "By the way, Hui said that you fell into this nightmare because you came into contact with the divine blood of the god of destruction. It thought of something important. Can you think of a way to get out?" So that's the reason." Yin Nuoxing scratched her head. "Actually, I've already guessed it, but I've never been completely sure. This dream more or less has the shadow of that battle in it. You came in later, so you didn't see a period of time earlier. This endless darkness is one of the dreams. The other dream is completely immersed in the battle, and the situation here is more dangerous. It's the dream of that battle that gave me this guess. As for getting out, I still can't think of a way out. Otherwise, I wouldn't be trapped here." After saying this, both of them laughed bitterly. He could not help but sigh. "We can only see if the owner of this dream is willing to let us out. It won't be that difficult, right?" When the little angel heard this answer, she was a little flustered, being trapped here and unable to get out. She had heard Hui say that her consciousness might be trapped in Yun Nuoxing's mind forever and become a symbiotic consciousness. It did not seem too bad. "Well, don't worry. We should be able to find a way before 10 days in the real world." Your expression is a little strange." Yin Nuoxing saw that her expression had become a little strange. Her beautiful face was flushed red, and she looked like she was sick. Anyway, he was shocked. He shook his head and threw the confused thoughts out of his mind. Previously, if he was alone, no matter how depressed and lost he was, it would not be a problem. Now that there was an extra person beside him, he had to quickly bring her out before the time was up. At the same time, Yin Nuoxing pulled her hand and moved forward. "Let's go. Now is not the time to think so much. We have to quickly find a way out." After taking 2 steps, he stopped. The faint blue light that had been following him like a shadow had disappeared. He did not know when it started, but a golden sea of light had appeared around him. It was the sea of light that had disappeared a long time ago. He did not know why it had reappeared in front of him. Was this some kind of hint to him, or was it telling him something? Without a second thought, Hao Ren pulled the little angel and walked over. After all, he had already done this more than once. At most, he would just go back and fight again to relieve his tiredness. That was what he thought. But suddenly, the dark space around them seemed to have something more. It was gray and dark, with a hint of gold. It looked like balls of bubbles. Yin Nuoxing looked curiously at the huge bubbles that were flying towards them. She widened her eyes. The golden color in the gloomy bubbles was actually a tangible and colorful scene that was constantly changing. Many people and other things appeared in the bubbles. They were vivid and lifelike, as if she was watching a memory fly past in front of her eyes. No, it was just like a memory. It seemed to be the memory of that Cammy, right? Yin Nuoxing shook her head and looked at the light balls of memories. It was not right to call them memories. Those were some impressions that she had left behind under that kind of situation. They were fragments of memories of this world, of that battle, and of her personal feelings. Basically, one could tell what the Cammy was thinking when she was in that kind of situation just by looking at the images in the light balls. Are these the Cammy's memories? But it's a little monotonous. She looked at the light balls that were flying in front of her. She could not help but reach out her hand to touch them. They were soft and bounced away. Not really, but it's fine to think of it this way. If memories are some kind of unstable brand left behind at a certain time in life. When the Cammy was injured, this part of the brand was sprinkled on me along with the god's blood. That's why we can see it. It's a kind of memory. It's just a fragment of a certain time. She nodded in understanding. She reached out her hand and accidentally touched a large ball of gray bubbles. She could not help but frown. It's so heavy, of course. At that time, it would be strange if there were any light and happy memories in that kind of situation. Yin Nuashing sighed. At that time, she was facing a heavy siege. She was also leading the descent of the void turbulence. At that time, her state of mind had already been covered with a layer of gray. It was impossible for her to be relaxed. That was probably the reason why the light balls were gray. The little angel looked at the scene where gray and gold intersected. It looked like the gold was fading into gray. Everything in the world was slowly losing its color. She had seen so many scenes, and that was how she felt. If she had to describe it more clearly, it was like she could not help but turn her head and look at Yin Nuashing, who had a serious expression on her face. She pursed her red lips tightly. It was like when she first came in and saw him. She had lost all hope, and her color had faded into a dead gray. Had the great god of origin also lost all hope in that scene? She shook her head and quickened her pace to walk side by side with him. She slightly retracted one of her wings and half-hugged him from the other side. Where are we going? The bottom, the place where these memory fragments floated out from. The sea of mind, the bottom of the sea of memories. These memory fragments are very complete. There is no sign of them being broken or broken. Perhaps it has a slightly intact core. If it does, it will exist at the bottom of the sea of mind. If there's a theoretical exit, it is very likely that it exists there. Yin Nuashing said, "How confident are you?" She felt a little relieved when she saw how confident he was. 0. Although I have seen these situations before, I can't guarantee that this situation applies to the god of origin. So 0. The little angel felt that the trust she had just handed over had fallen into a smelly dish. Well, it was not that serious. She was just worried. She was worried that they would be trapped here forever. The uneasiness she felt when she came in had turned into a sense of expectation. Found it. Just when she was still feeling uneasy, a very dazzling light suddenly lit up in front of her eyes. It was a gray light. It was very dazzling, but in fact, it was as if the whole world had faded and lost all colors. In that scene, there was only black and white. In that scene, there was a person sitting there with her face buried between her knees. It felt as if the whole world that belonged to her had collapsed in an instant. Little by little, there was no hope left. The whole world was torn into pieces and used as soil. What was born from the soil was also broken despair and fury built on everything. She wanted to tear this world apart because her world was destroyed. Therefore, she wanted the whole great Yuan realm to be buried with her. Yin Nuashing could not help but sigh bitterly. She had succeeded. She had succeeded in making her crazy idea come true. The great samsara in the great primordial realm had been repeated several times. For the 8 primordial realms, it was a great samsara that occurred once every 20 years. However, for the mortal world, the frequency of the void turbulence was extremely high. In the 3 primordial realms, it only took a few tens of billions of years, or at the latest 100 billion years. Yin Nuashing did not know how much of her anger this void turbulence carried, but he had a rough idea. It was enough to wash the great primordial realm countless times. Every time, it would take away 99% of the lives in the great primordial realm and destroy everything tangible and intangible. No life could withstand this kind of anger. At that moment of extreme fury, the idea of destroying everything indiscriminately caused the entire great primordial realm to be buried with her. Would she know that the void turbulence this time had been recorded by the void and was still happening? Yin Nuashing's eyelids drooped slightly. He felt that he could understand her. At the moment of the last scene, their thoughts had almost overlapped. He could understand, he understood, and he did not feel that there was anything wrong with what she had done. If it were him, perhaps he would have done something even more extreme and brutal, until the entirety Yuan realm was engraved in that part of history. Little star, she looks so pitiful. The little angel tugged his hand. Looking at the figure that was curled up in the corner, as if it was about to be forgotten by the world, she could not help but say, even if the great Yuan realm is destroyed 10 times more, and the great Yuan realm suffers 10 times more pain, everything will not be salvaged. This great samsara that happens once every 20 epochs, at least, she will feel more comfortable. Whether she will fall into a deeper abyss after that moment of comfort or something else. At least, I don't think she did anything wrong. Wrong? So what? That is the judgment of us and other lives. What does it have to do with her? So capricious. She cannot help but mutter. She pouted and said, capricious God. She has always been such a capricious person. Yin Nuashing smiled bitterly. Although they had never met and did not know much about the heavenly God, he felt that he could understand the heavenly God of destruction very well. There were many areas where their thoughts could resonate. Whether she is capricious or not, whether she is right or wrong, it doesn't matter. Until she feels that she has done something wrong, it is not wrong. As long as there is one person who agrees and resonates with her, it is not wrong. In any case, Yin Nuashing paused for a moment and took a deep breath. In any case, the void is full of trash. I think it is not a bad idea to have a great samsara to clean it up regularly. Her body tilted, and her wings almost cramped. Clean up trash. That was a great samsara, all right? Every 20 eras. It was a terrifying void activity that would destroy the void and destroy 99% of all lives in the Yuan realm. But he called it cleaning up trash. Yin Nuashing could not help but laugh when she saw the dumbfounded yet adorable face. She reached out with both hands and rubbed her face. She smiled and said, so what if 99% of lives are destroyed? So what if all the worlds are destroyed? In the end, the realm of the gods will be preserved. Everything else has nothing to do with us. No matter how great a person is, no matter how glorious a world is, it has nothing to do with us. Even if it is not destroyed in the great samsara, it will be destroyed at some other time. Without any interaction, we will never feel anything. At most, we will feel a faint sympathy for each other because we are in the same predicament. What if you have a friend who died in the great samsara? Would you still be able to say that? She could not help but mutter. It has happened before, probably more than one or two. But it can't be helped. After all, the great samsara is an established fact in this void. I can't change it, and I can't change it. So I just have to stop it. Look at the realm of the gods. It can withstand the impact of the great samsara. The little angel was speechless. She mumbled to herself for a long while before she hurriedly turned to look at the heavenly destruction god. Is she also an impression fragment? Probably. Since she appeared here, she should be. Yin Nuashing nodded, and the netherworld ruined sword appeared in her hand. She looked left and right, and in the end, she still felt that she was the only thing worth paying attention to in this dark space. This must be the bottom of the heart sea. How we get out? Yin Nuashing waved the netherworld ruin sword in her hand and suddenly pointed it forward. It's very simple. We just have to shatter her. Little Angel used 3 seconds to confirm that she hadn't gone crazy, nor had she heard wrongly. She had indeed heard the 7 words very clearly. After confirming it, she rolled her eyes and fainted. Chapter 1271. She is the core of this memory fragment dimension, the main carrier of all the memory fragments. It is a trap, the most important existence. Breaking this core will only lead to 2 outcomes. 1, the core collapses, the dimension collapses, and this dimension will be fundamentally erased. It will become non-existent, and the nightmare will naturally disappear. The other outcome, well, this dimension will collapse in the form of a lock, and we will be in this dimension, and then there is no end. Yin Nuoxing's calm words made the little angel's face turn even paler. That is why I said it is a trap, a half-trap. We cannot be sure how this nightmare will collapse and end. As he spoke, he slowly walked up to the heavenly god of origin. His hand that was lifting the sword was trembling slightly. Perhaps he was still a little wary of that identity, or perhaps it was rare to know that there was someone in this world who was somewhat similar to him, or perhaps there were many ifs that he could not put into words. Anyway, he looked at the thin figure sitting on the ground, hugging her knees and burying her face in them as if her heart had died. A deathly gray color that was exactly the same as this world spread over her long hair and long robes. Looking at her, he could not bring himself to do it. The Netherine sword in his hand kept changing its angle, and the tip of the sword was always pointed at the figure. Yin Nuoxing felt a little depressed, and his breathing became heavier. He felt that he was in a somewhat nervous state, and as he stood there and thought about the upcoming scene, his consciousness became a little scattered. He took a deep breath, and with both hands gripping the Netherine sword tightly, he charged forward with all his strength. All the illusions around them seemed to have become even dimmer. The little angel looked at this scene with a pale face and hurriedly ran over from afar. She wanted to stop Yin Nuoxing, but she found that she could not open her mouth. She could only charge forward like an arrow. Even if this was just an illusion, she was still the heavenly god of destruction. If she was destroyed in this place, what would the consequences be? The flow of time slowed down a lot in an instant. Yin Nuoxing could clearly see the Netherine sword stabbing towards her bit by bit. The grayish-white scene seemed to have entered a kind of memory. He watched as the scene repeated itself, and saw that she also slowly raised her head. He could not see, so of course it was just a face with a contour. It felt familiar to him, but it was an illusion. That sense of familiarity came from himself, and it could even be anyone he knew. At this moment, the faces of everyone he knew could be placed on the person in front of him. So it was simply an illusion. Even so, he was still frightened and did not expect her to still be able to move. So what would she do next? She would probably be angry when she saw an ant-like person doing something to her illusion. Would she want to kill him? The next moment, the stagnant time and space flowed smoothly again, and the purple-black sword pierced through her body. She was just like a mortal who was casually pierced through. It did not feel real at all, and it did not feel like it had really pierced through anything. As he said, this was just an illusion. Poking the reflection of the moon on the lake with a sword would naturally not cause any real harm to the moon. She still maintained her posture of looking up, and her hanging bangs covered her face. Suddenly, she approached Yin Nuoxing with the giant sword. This action made his hair stand on end, and he heard a faint voice hovering in his ear. "Got you." Her illusion was like an illusion that fell to the ground. Suddenly, it shattered into pieces and fell from the sky. Even the pieces slowly disappeared into specks of light. As the core of the illusion collapsed, the dark world was blown away like a fallen leaf in a strong wind. A white light swept over like a flood. The little angel finally rushed in front of Yin Nuoxing. Seeing the white light like a tsunami and Yin Nuoxing's dull expression, she gritted her teeth and used her soul power to wrap around the guy who had screwed up at the critical moment. Both of them were swallowed by the white light together, and the rumbling sound that crushed their eardrums was like a real tsunami roaring past. The loud roar sounded like the sound of space collapsing. There was no strange feeling, and their consciousness could not see or feel anything. Only the rumbling of destruction that kept echoing in their ears was the only thing that their consciousness could hear during the process of returning. The two people did not know how long they had been circling around in the rumbling sound. Along the way, they saw some dark things. Those were probably the memory fragments of the god who had not been completely destroyed. The lonely memories that drifted out with this space were gradually disappearing at this moment with the collapse of this space. Wow. The little angel let out a long breath and got up from the bed. Panting, the wings behind her kept flapping, as if she wanted to spit out all the shock that she had just experienced. The reality of the space in this world kept surging into her senses as she returned. The flow of the river, the rushing wind, the thick earth, space, time, and more were all absent in that nightmare. There was only a blank space, endless emptiness and endless darkness. It was a nightmare. Well, you came back safe and sound. Although you were a few minutes late, you were indeed fine. Huey's faint laughter sounded beside her. The little angel was still in a daze and did not react. After a while, she became more awake and understood what he meant. She quickly looked to the side. It doesn't matter if it's Maple. He came back a few minutes earlier than you and is now waking up by the lake. As he spoke, Huey's face became gloomier. That was really dangerous. For 8.5 days, I thought you had failed. I planned to pull you back in one more day. That's not what you said at the beginning. She laughed bitterly. It's only been 8.5 days. I felt that a very long time had passed in that space, although I already felt that the time in that space was not quite the same as the space in this world. By the way, is he okay? When he came out in the end, she could not help but look outside. She turned around and rushed out of the bed. We looked at the open door. The little angel disappeared at the door like a ray of light. He was stunned. Hey, he's gone. Who am I supposed to talk to? Shaking his head helplessly, he propped himself up and stretched his body. Then, he casually picked up a reddish-black pearl from the bed and placed it on his palm. Looking through the reddish-black pearl, he looked at the space behind it. Everything had faded into a grayish-white color. But the memory fragment of the heavenly god of destruction? This thing should be fine since it's locked in the crystal pearl of the dream palace, right? Judging from how calm the energy is, there shouldn't be any problems, right? Probably. We looked at the little angel by the lakeside through the window, and then looked at his partner, who seemed to have something on his mind. He could not help but shake his head and turn to walk away. Well, it seems that my partner has something to deal with. I'll leave him alone for now. Let's go check on the time, descending formation. It's almost time. He pinched his fingers and counted something. His eyes were a little unfocused. Suddenly, he pressed his index finger so hard that it made a sound. He jumped up in pain. Ouch. Forget it, forget it. It should be fine as long as Maple is here. That's right, everything will be fine. He just felt that there were too many troublesome things recently. So he went to do a divination. He used the statue to see the future, but it was vague. He did not see it clearly, but just glanced at the direction. Perhaps what they were going to do was too exaggerated, and the direction of the future was a complete mess. 1 second, everything was fine, and the next second, it was like falling into an ice cave. Everything became very bad, and the future showed a better side in the farther future. Life and death are up to fate. Anyway, we've almost done what we should do, except for the goal of becoming a premier, which is impossible to achieve in the short term. Everything else is already splash. The cool water soaked into her clothes. Yin Nuashing opened her eyes and looked up at the sky across the water. It was blue and clear. Then what about the further places, the starry sky, the star region, the void, and the further places deep in the void? Would those places be better? Nonsense. She knew it without thinking. He always felt that he had become strange. He actually took the initiative to think about these things. No, he was avoiding another more complicated thing. It was not easy to get rid of the dark illusion, but his mind kept thinking about that scene. That gray scene, the memory fragments, and that sentence, engraved in his mind like a curse, made him very concerned. No matter how much he thought about other things, he could not avoid this question. I've caught you. With a smile, like a declaration after winning a game. Was that really the god of destruction? Oh no, it should be her. In the memory of the Eye of the Ocean, she was such a capricious and casual person, like a child, like a traveler. This was her carefree side. Hidden deeper was another side, a side that was more twisted, deep, dark, and crazy. Like him, it was a side of her that had torn her heart into two extremes. Yes, it was because of this that he could understand her. That voice, it didn't seem like it. Even though the content of the two voices seemed to be the same person, the voices didn't seem like it. The voice that he had encountered before didn't have any distinctive features, but her voice could be recognized. He had heard it several times already, and he was sure that it was her voice. However, the former had no distinctive features, like a piece of white paper. Naturally, it could be colored to become her voice. It was impossible that the two were actually the same. Was she still alive? Was she still alive in this dark age? If he thought about it carefully, she seemed to have mentioned something in her diary. The existence of the dark age was her mistake. It was actually very easy to understand. She had used a void quake to bury countless lives and worlds with her, as if she had gone mad. Who would have thought that even 0.1% of lives had survived under that kind of destructive turbulence? They even planned to do something big in this era, and the entire UN realm did not have the power to resist them. If she had not destroyed so many lives, the underworld would not have been so rampant. Yes, if he had to say it, this reason made sense. Did she feel regret? Did she think that she had done wrong? But did she have any other choice at that time? It seemed that she did not. Speaking of which, since she could leave a diary in the 61st era, that meant that she was actually still alive, right? Could it be that she was actually still alive in this dark age, but she was too injured to care about anything? Yin Nuoshing frowned. His body floated up from the bottom of the water and floated toward the shore. While he was still thinking, he saw a small white hand in front of him. He looked up and saw that the little angel was looking at him curiously. She grabbed his hand and pulled him up from the water. She said, "What are you thinking about? You look so serious." If it's another messy thing, you don't have to tell me." Yin Nuoshing staggered and almost fell into the water again. "Why another?" "That's because you're always thinking about all sorts of random things." Yin Nuoshing's forehead twitched. He opened his mouth and found that he had nothing to refute. He could not help but smile bitterly. "It's kind of messy things. It's just some problems that I think about in my spare time." It tilted its head to express its puzzlement. Yin Nuoshing softly told it about the things in the illusion and the things that happen in the real world. "Maybe I'm a little oversensitive. I can't help but always combine these two things together. It's just an intuition without any basis. I'll look for you. I've caught you." It pinched its chin and murmured, "Indeed, it's easy to connect these two sentences just by saying these two sentences." It tilted its head and looked at him. It closed its eyes and pondered. It seemed that it had fallen into a deeper thought, and this time it might not be easy to break free from it. "Since you care so much," it suddenly spoke softly, interrupting his thoughts. When it saw him looking at it, it said, "Why don't we go and find her ourselves?" Find who?" Yin Nuoshing was stunned. "The god of origin, the god of destruction. You care a lot, don't you? If she's really like what you've guessed, there's a 60% chance that she's still alive in this era. From the perspective of many years ago, your karma with her was established not long ago in the future, and you said that in the illusion that day, she did indeed see you 11 eras later, but she saw that you were an even further future you. If this theory is true, then she can see you from any corner of this world in advance. By the way, you see, she summoned the void turbulence and destroyed the enemy, but she must have been seriously injured when she was caught in the center of the disaster phenomenon that she herself had caused. She might have been confused by the void turbulence and lost her mind." Yin Nuoshing's expression suddenly became very strange. It blushed and immediately coughed dryly. "What are you looking at? It's all your fault." Anyway, that's what it means. When you were unintentionally looking for that god, she might have been looking for you too." Yin Nuoshing said, "That seems to make a little sense." So irritating. In the next second, he scratched his ears and cheeks and roared. His roar slammed the lake in front of him into the cliff, causing the entire mountain to tremble and a large pile of rocks to fall down. "Well, it's normal to be irritated. Thinking back to the few years that I've known you, when have you not been irritated by something?" It smiled helplessly, shook its head, and said, let's leave these digressions for now. There aren't many chances for you to come in contact with her, so we can only talk about it the next time we have the chance. I was just saying that with our strength, if we really want to find the origin heavenly God, we might as well wait for her to come to us. If she really is looking for you, there will definitely be a day when we will meet. One day, Yin Nuashing muttered. Before his thoughts could extend, the little angel knocked on his head and said, "Hui wants to talk to you about something. It's very important. Now that you're awake, let's go." Oh. He froze for a moment and nodded. It's probably about the resonance of the timeline. The future will become more chaotic, more unpredictable, and out of control. Anyway, I don't plan to deal with it. This way, there will be even less time to do other things. Seeing that he was talking to himself as he walked, the little angel shook its head in amusement and followed him. It seems that I've fooled him. He probably won't mention this matter again in a short period of time. But I'm not that easy to fool. It's just that I've moved on to more important things. I can only think about the more important and more troublesome matter at hand. Hey girl, what are you waiting for? Let's go. We still need you to protect us when we're doing something. Yin Nuashing waved at it from not far away and urged it. The little angel smiled and let go of her hands behind her back. She trotted to his side and hooked his arm as they flew forward. I know. Chapter 1272. The chaos of nothingness ended, and a huge space filled with order was born. It encompassed the entire void and was as boundless as the land of nothingness. Order and chaos constantly collided at the border, and this eternal war suddenly stopped after a drastic change. From then on, the realms of order and non-order coexisted in harmony, and they no longer disturbed each other. However, that drastic change also divided the huge space of order into 8. Balance and order were divided into 8 different realms, and that was the great elemental realm that the world knew at this time. From legends to records, the first realm to give birth to life was the Yuan realm, which recovered its balance and order the fastest. The 8 Yuan realm was the latest, and the first to give birth to life was not a life of order, but a non-order life that could not evolve at all. It was a one-off life. Most of the non-order life that belonged to this category were of different sizes, or rather, they did not have any form of body. They were very chaotic, like life that was casually created by a child by pinching mud. They did not have much intelligence and did not have much value. Therefore, after the stable concept of life of order appeared, they were quickly eliminated by the void and could no longer exist in the void. In the entirety Yuan realm, there were only a few non-order life that could successfully survive by following the flow of the void. This division excluded the oldest heavenly gods of origin. In fact, they were the first life that appeared in the Yuan realm. However, they did not belong to any side. They were not of order nor non-order. They were the most special existences that guarded the balance of the Yuan realm. Because they did not belong to any side, they naturally could not be biased towards any side. However, the number of non-order life was pitifully small. Therefore, it seemed that there was no need to differentiate whether they were biased or not. The first life forms of the great Yuan realm. Even the previous era, the gods of origin were very mysterious existences. In the remaining records of the deity's realm, not many people from the deity's realm have seen them. Although the world was created by them, they did not receive any special treatment. They were mysterious and powerful and controlled powers that no other life form could understand. Well, that's probably what they were. After all, they were the guardians of the great Yuan realm. They knew more things than all the other life forms combined. Hui was checking and adjusting the time pillar charm to ensure that it could remain intact in the next movement. If something collapsed during the time axis resonance, or if some parts were missing, it would be troublesome. When it comes to such special existences, casually borrowing their power will definitely lead to disaster. After all, the existence of the origin great heavenly gods is the most mysterious thing in this world. But what we are about to do is different. The realm of the gods was personally created by them, and their power is still within it. In other words, this world is an extremely special carrier that carries the power of the origin great heavenly gods, and we are one of these two carriers. Ugh. Looking at his awkward expression, Yin Nuashing couldn't help but shake her head. They're just two poor maintenance workers. What's so hard about it? Huey's stubbornness was completely crushed by this sentence. His entire body turned gray, and he couldn't even muster the strength to speak. Although that's the truth, can't you just keep it to yourself? We are the guardian and observer of the God realm. We are the two strongest people in the 8 elements realm. Can you not make it sound so pathetic? We are just poor maintenance workers. How many years has it been? What's there to be embarrassed about? Yin Nuashing crossed her arms and yawned. She had been a maintenance worker for even longer. Well, it had been dozens of years already. He scratched his head gloomily and sighed helplessly. Maintenance workers it is. It's not that bad anyway. The task of the second divine job is to ensure the safety of the divine realm. For this reason, we have a lot of things to do, even if it's just to ensure the existence of the divine realm itself. If we encounter something that we can't solve, we can borrow some tools from the master, right? Yin Nuashing glanced at him and was a little speechless. She didn't know how to respond to him, so she simply ignored him. She felt that his explanation was even worse than the maintenance worker's explanation. Fine, borrowing tools it is. Right now, they need to use the power of the origin great heavenly gods. So if they want to borrow it, isn't that just borrowing tools? He slapped his face. He felt that his thoughts were being pulled away recently. He thought that he had influenced Hui and the little angel, and now these two fellows were leading his thoughts astray. By the way, old friend, Hui stopped after checking a talisman and turned to look at him worriedly. Are you really okay? That nightmare. You may be the first person in history to walk out of the dream of the divine blood. By the way, I thought of this name 5 minutes ago. Are you sure your body is fine? Yin Nuashing looked up at the sky. Problem. It seems that he is not completely fine. He rolled up his right sleeve and used his heart to feel for a while. A golden red pattern appeared on his arm. It's not completely fine. Look, there's an extra mark on my arm. But other than that, I don't feel any other problems. Hui walked over worriedly, holding Yin Nuashing's arm and looking at it over and over again. He knew that there was a bigger piece of God's blood on Yin Nuashing's back. Yin Nuashing also looked at it carefully. It looked different from what he saw at the beginning. If the God's blood that was splashed on his body at that time was like splashing ink, this time the splashed ink was drawn into a painting. It was meticulously made, sacred, mysterious, and completely incomprehensible. There seemed to be bright energy flowing in the exquisite patterns, and it looked like the reflection of the sun. There is indeed a trace of the primordial God, exactly the same as the one in the core. Hui put down his arm and could not help but frown. It seems that it was not placed on your body by other means or some kind of trick. It is indeed what you got in that illusion. You suspect that there is something else? Yin Nuashing waved his hand. That's impossible. I got it that time. Well, I can't rule out the possibility that someone else deliberately used something to create that illusion. I thought about it before, but after coming out of the nightmare, I think that the possibility is infinitely close to zero. Hui nodded. The dark clouds that surrounded his face did not dissipate for a long time. Since he thoroughly understood Yin Nuashing's duty as the observer and what he had done in those years, the frequency of his gloomy expression was countless times more than before. As a guy who was seen as a sunny guy in the hearts of most of the people in the realm of the gods, it was rare to see such a gloomy expression. Yin Nuashing shook his arm and looked at the pattern on his arm from different angles. He caught a glimpse of Huey's gloomy expression and his mind moved, causing the pattern to darken again. He patted Huey's shoulder. All right, let's put my matter aside first. There are more important things at hand. Don't be distracted at this juncture. Hui heard him and looked up. He hesitated for a moment, sighed, and nodded. I know. Let's deal with the matter at hand first. The space beside the two flickered slightly. The little angel came out of the spatial rift, flapped his folded wings, and nodded to the two. The front line in the void is ready. If there is any unusual movement, Green and the others will know. The void where the realm of the gods is located is also under strict surveillance. The situation in the outside world is more or less at ease, right? Hearing that, Yun Nuashing shook his head. We can't be at ease. The two forces with the power of divine destruction that we mentioned last time are still individuals. Since they have that kind of power, their knowledge in other aspects may not be much less than ours. The big movements that we have made in the void one after another are known to the entire upper plane and the middle plane. There may be people who recognize the timing, and there may also be people who can infer what we're going to do from these movements. Even if they don't completely know our purpose, they will definitely know that we have made a big move. Those who don't want to see any movements from the realm of the gods will definitely come out and cause trouble. The void is far more unsettled than we think. Even if all the order life forms in the upper and middle planes have the same goal, that's only the general goal. It's impossible for them to reach the same goal when it comes to smaller goals. No matter if they're mortal or not, those people have far too many considerations and concerns. As long as they have these concerns, it will cause deviations and abnormalities. I'm against telling others about the resonance of the timeline to prevent it from causing more deviations and abnormalities after it's made public. As long as the big goal is the same, I don't care about the rest. When the enemy comes knocking on our door, it will be enough. When they are hurt, it will be enough. As for the rest, I don't want anything else. It is enough to be able to do this. I am even worried that if there are too many things gathered together, it will cause trouble. Hui and the little angel listened to him muttering to himself. They looked at each other silently and sighed helplessly. Does this guy want to care or not care about what happens next? Can't he just give an honest answer and not be so arrogant? Hui sighed and shook his head. He spoke to the people of the celestial realm and the ancient royal family who were directly under their command through their souls. Something is going to happen. Everyone, stay alert. From now on, the celestial realm will be on the highest alert. Before we come out, don't let any outsiders enter the celestial realm. For the next period of time, we probably won't have the time to care about the outside world. I Ching, I will leave the command to you. I Ching, who was sitting cross-legged in the void outside of the realm of the gods, collapsed due to his unstable state of mind. When he saw the envious, jealous, and hateful expressions of his companions around him, his face was a mess. Ah, Lord Hui this, Lord Hui, I Ching is still too young. Although he has good potential, this is a serious matter. Why don't I? The Green Clan's Grand Monarch slapped I Ching's head and grinned. You are too impulsive. Moreover, the first 30 options in the plan list are all rush forward. It's not easy to wait for a different plan, but the result is don't be afraid. I Ching calmed down a little. You just need to assist him. Then, the Green Clan's Grand Monarch looked away awkwardly and did not say anything. The others who heard it could not help but snigger secretly. His companions in the void far away slapped the table and laughed. Those who were guarding the celestial realm were holding back their laughter until the blood vessels on their faces were about to burst. I Ching also looked embarrassed. Looking at the senior in front of him, he did not know what to say. Suddenly taking over the so-called command, he was also very nervous. He wanted to say something, but Huey's voice had been cut off. Only his own nervous heartbeat was left in his soul. That, big brother Ching, what should I do? I Ching nervously cast a pleading look at Ching Jun's forehead burst with blue veins. He took a deep breath and slowly walked up to I Ching, looking down at him condescendingly with an oppressive aura. The latter suddenly stopped talking and was so scared that his breathing stopped, but he was still very strong and looked at him in the eye. Ching Jun looked at him, stretched out his hand, and patted him on the shoulder. He said in a deep voice, "Boy, you have to remember that our every move and every word is related to the overall situation. Lord Hui and his friends are worried about this mess in the void every day. To put it bluntly, they are worried about us and the lives of many people they don't even know. You are still too young, but since Lord Hui has entrusted this heavy responsibility to you, he naturally has his reasons. Boy, listen to me carefully." Ching Jun's expression suddenly became a little dignified. He stared at I Ching and said in a deep voice, If you can't bear such a heavy responsibility and fail to live up to Lord Huey's expectations, even if I have to be scolded or taught a lesson afterwards, I will beat you to death. I understand. I Ching straightened his back, nodded solemnly, and bowed solemnly to the god realm. I Ching will not disappoint Lord Guardian's expectations. Boom! A roar suddenly came from the void. The violent vibration caused the entire dark space to be suffused with disordered colors. A dark yellow time barrier slowly emerged from the void. The chaotic flow of time seemed to want to break through the shackles of that fragile barrier. The power of time rapidly gathered in the void and vibrated continuously. It has begun. The movement in this part of the void had not yet spread to other places, but it was only a matter of time before it spread to other places. Qing Jun's expression was dignified. Not only him, but the other people in the god realm and the ancient royal family who received the news far away in the void also knew. I Ching looked at this scene and came back to his senses after a long time. He suddenly remembered what he had to do. He waved his hand and said sternly, "Array masters and curse masters, seal the void. No matter how small the effect is, try to delay the people in other parts of the void from sensing this movement as much as possible. Big Brother Qing, take some people and guard the points leading to the god realm. Also, the void frontline." When the outside world became a little chaotic because of the movement of Yin Nuoxing and Hui, these two guys were sitting cross-legged on two nodes of a time, descending array. Their expressions were dignified as they used their soul and spiritual power to guide something. The little angel was watching from aside. She nervously clenched her jade-like hands and took a few steps back. Her wings spread out to a width of 5 to 6 meters. Some golden runes floated out from her wings and imprinted themselves in the void. A huge amount of time power continuously poured out from the sea of time and poured into the golden pillars in front of Yin Nuoxing and Hui. All the runes and symbols engraved in this square floated up from the ground and the pillars. Following the movements of the two, they emitted an extremely bright golden light. The golden light condensed, as if a sun had descended in this place. The whole world was filled with golden light. This side has been stabilized. Yin Nuoxing controlled the chaotic power of time. Her hands made a net-like action and gathered it at the top of the pillar. Through the pillar, it was transmitted to the entire square. When will you start guiding that power? I can start now. Wait a moment. We took a deep breath. A divine rune appeared on his forehead. At this moment, his eyes became as bright as the sun. He stretched his hands into the space in front of him and slowly closed his eyes. However, his mind could not help but wander. Although what he said before seemed reasonable and there seemed to be no problem, it seemed like it was said that he was borrowing a tool. However, whether he could borrow it or not was another matter. The supreme divine power of the origin god was deposited in the deepest part of the god realm. That was the place where his hands were touching at this moment. In his senses, he was constantly approaching a huge source of energy. The energy was so huge that it made his heart palpitate and made his mind chaotic. Once he was confused, he could not help but let his imagination run wild. He seemed to have found it smoothly because he had found it many times. However, this time he had to guide it out. Even if he used the power of the Guardian, it was not certain that it would work. Even if he succeeded in guiding it out, how could he use it? Even if Yin Nuoxing's soft voice was like a wisp of cool air from the north that blew into his soul. It stopped his wild thoughts at once. Hui was stunned and came back to his senses. He saw Yin Nuoxing staring at him from not far away. Her pair of black eyes contained a ray of light that filled him with confidence. It calmed his uneasy heart in an instant. I'm fine. I'm just a little nervous." Huey's dry laugh made Yin Nuoxing sigh softly. He was indeed nervous. Anyone would be nervous if this matter happened to them. It was good enough that he was nervous. As for the others, when they heard about what they were going to do, they would probably be scared out of their wits. "Hui, don't worry. I'm here. Believe in yourself." Yin Nuoxing nodded at him and said softly. Hui grinned. Even if he couldn't believe in himself, he would believe in his partner. He nodded, and with a hint of nervousness that had calmed down, his hand that went deep into the space slowly approached the somewhat terrifying energy source. The power of the Guardian flowed out from his body, and the energy's influence on him suddenly became much smaller. He took a deep breath and wandered around the area for a while. When he opened his eyes again, he saw that Yin Nuoxing was still staring at him with that kind of encouraging gaze. He took a long breath. Then, without hesitation, he stretched out his hand and grabbed the energy source. Boom! It was impossible to grab a ball of energy and leave. His action disturbed the origin-level energy that had settled here for countless years. This reaction was within his expectations. Even with his power, it was too much for him to touch the huge energy. The energy hit his palm, causing him to groan in pain. Before he lost feeling in his hands, he hurriedly threw them upwards. The origin energy that he had grabbed was like a primer that opened up a path. The huge amount of energy was suddenly pulled and rushed towards the shallow layer of the realm of the gods. Hui hurriedly pulled his hands out. His hands had already turned into charred charcoal after being hit by the extremely powerful energy and law energy. Old man, catch it. Yin Nuoxing was also stunned when he saw his hand, but at the moment, he did not have the time to rush over to help him heal. In his senses, there was some kind of extremely powerful energy that was wrapped in a familiar energy and rushed to where they were. It was Hui who was using his spiritual force and soul force to guide that energy. Yin Nuoxing's hand seals changed, and the time descending formation under his feet suddenly changed. In a rapid change of the patterns, it was like a closed door that blocked the energy. At this moment, it was like a black hole, leading all the energy paths to those pillars. Hui groaned in pain. His remaining spiritual power was exhausted. However, he had already completed his guidance. Even if the energy lost the guidance of his spiritual power, it would still smoothly rush into the time-descending formation. Partner, next it's up to you. Oh no. Before he could finish his sentence, he felt that when the energy was about to rush into the time-descending formation, it suddenly lost its momentum. The wave actually showed signs of retreating. Yin Nuoxing and the other two were shocked. Without thinking, the latter stretched out his hands and caught the energy. Bang! An unimaginably huge amount of energy hit his arm. He tried to take over the unattended energy. However, when the energy landed on his hand, it was not as quiet as when it landed on Huey's hand. The energy was restless. It even went on a rampage with some irritation. This energy, Yin Nuoxing widened his eyes in shock. He used all his power as an observer to forcibly control the energy. However, the energy was obviously much stronger than him. It instantly broke through his control and rushed up his hand. An indescribable destructive force touched his body. He felt as if half of his body had disappeared in an instant. How can this energy be so huge? Yin Nuoxing's body cracked. His body could not withstand this energy. His eyes were bloodshot. He gritted his teeth and stubbornly tried to take back the control one more time. However, the tiny bit of energy he had touched had already brought the flood of energy from behind him. It was just a drop of energy, but it was enough to crack his god body. If it went straight into his body, he would die without a doubt. Even his divine soul would be annihilated under that torrent of energy. Foam! We saw his body collapse and part of his soul explode in an instant. He was so shocked that he used his shoulder to support his body and got up. Little Star, the little angel, also realized that something was wrong. The energy that was so huge that it seemed to be able to overturn the entire void suddenly lost its strength. It suddenly changed its path and rushed toward him. Her pretty face instantly turned pale. She quickly flapped her wings and rushed out. Before she could rush to his side, she was suddenly stunned. She stopped halfway and did not know what to do. Hui, who had struggled to get up, was also slightly stunned when he saw the scene in front of him. Yin Nuoxing had already gritted his teeth and waited for the torrent of destruction to rush into his body and cause his soul to scatter. However, after waiting for a long time, nothing happened. Even the energy that was running wild in his body stopped. He was very puzzled. After a while, He carefully opened his eyes. The skin and flesh of his right hand, which had entered the space where the energy was, were torn open. Blood was gushing out. At first glance, it looked as if he had rolled over a row of knives. Furthermore, it was the impact of the energy rules. This arm would probably not be able to move for some time. Oh, right. More importantly, a golden red pattern lit up on his arm. Its edges were like feathers and were very beautiful. He originally thought that it was just a mark or a pattern. However, at this moment, it released a wave of energy that calmed down the energy that he was guiding. That was the smell of the energy of the heavenly god of destruction. Chapter 1273. Within the golden red mark, there was an inexplicable energy aura. It was the appearance of that energy that caused the enormous energy that was smashing over like the entire void to become much quieter. Yin Noashing stared blankly at the golden red pattern and was a little stunned. This is her energy, heavenly destruction god, heavenly origin god. Her energy calmed down the disturbed origin energy. Yin Noashing stared blankly at his arm, which was still bleeding profusely. His arm was wrapped in golden red patterns, and it looked extremely sinister. He moved his arm, but didn't feel any pain. It seemed like it was a nomological injury. However, he could still move his arm, which meant that he didn't need to regrow it. The energy flowing into his body through his arm made him frown and close one of his eyes. This energy is too massive. Damn it. Listen to me. Hui was also stunned when he saw that Yin Nuashing was fine. After a moment of daze, he hurriedly yelled, "Foam, hurry up and inject that energy into the time pillar. Your body can't handle that energy." "I know, but this energy, it doesn't want to listen to my orders." Large amounts of sweat dripped down Yin Nuashing's forehead. The energy slowly squeezed into his body through his arm. Although it had calmed down and was no longer destructive due to the heavenly destruction god's energy, he felt that the capacity of the heavenly origin god was large enough. However, in front of this energy, it was still extremely small. It was as if he was comparing a world of light to the entire void. At this rate, he was still going to be stuffed to death. He struggled with all his might to move his arm, but the energy seemed to have locked onto his arm, not allowing him to move at all. Unable to move his hand, he also had no way of guiding the energy into the time descending formation. At the same time, he would also be stuffed to death by this profound, mysterious, and complex energy that was much more powerful than the power of God's destruction. That's right, this energy, every drop of energy was so powerful that it made people's hearts tremble, but now was not the time to explore anything. He only knew that in a while, he might not be able to escape the fate that he faced 2 or 3 minutes ago. Hui flew over from the side and hung onto Yin Nuashing. He gritted his teeth and slammed his head into Yin Nuashing's back. He imprinted the mark on his forehead on Yin Nuashing's back. "Hurry up. Use my energy. If the observer's power isn't enough, the guardian can." The special energy that had just entered his body made Yin Nuashing startled. He was very familiar with this energy. After hearing Huey's words, he didn't hesitate. He grabbed the energy mark with his other hand and pressed it on his right hand. The shackle feeling of being locked on him suddenly disappeared. Yin Nuashing was slightly shocked. He quickly pushed the energy mark in his hand and pulled in his right hand. The huge source of energy suddenly withdrew from his body. Yin Nuashing was sweating profusely as he took a few steps back. The light in this space dimmed a little. All the gathered power of time became less active, as if it had sensed something in advance. A moment later, the huge pillar in the center of the time, descending formation, gradually lit up. All the energy had gathered in it, whether it was the power of time in the square or the source of energy. The mysterious, esoteric, and incomprehensible energy aura gushed out from the special pillar of time. The huge condensed energy was restlessly moving in it, but it was locked in this specific space by many runes and could not break free. A golden belt of light suddenly emerged out of thin air. It was like watching a sapling grow branches and leaves after a few decades, spreading upward. After spreading to a certain extent, the golden tree suddenly condensed into a golden beam of light, and then burst out into a huge golden ocean in all directions. It was really an ocean. It should be the Sea of Time. Huge waves could be seen rolling up and down the sea on both sides of the golden ocean. The pillar pierced into the ocean like a sea-stabilizing needle, allowing the Sea of Time to appear in the world. The Sea of Time. He looked at the undulating golden ocean and could not help but murmur. A moment later, he saw Yun Nuashing and Hui lying on the ground. He quickly flew over to help Yun Nuashing up. "Are you still alive?" "I'm all right." Yun Nuashing grinned and lay in its arms while trembling. He suddenly coughed out a large mouthful of blood and felt an intense pain coming from his body as if he was being pricked by needles. "You're still okay?" He frowned. He put his hand on Hao Rin's arm and checked it. His face changed dramatically. This energy, Yun Nuashing knew what he saw. He could not help but shake his head with a wry smile. Before he could say anything, Hui, who had stood up, seemed to understand. His face also changed. "Partner, is the source of energy remaining in your body?" "Just a little compared to that." Yun Nuashing gasped for breath and waved his hand as if he wanted the two people to rest assured. He stood up and barely managed to stand. He grinned at the little angel and the others who looked serious. "Don't worry, I won't die. Compared to worrying about me, this is just the first step. It's not really over yet." Hearing that, he could not help but smile bitterly. Aren't you going to try running this thing first? You came up without any preparation. We don't have so much time for a trial run." Hui clenched the bandage with his teeth and wrapped it around his hands. It was a bandage engraved with sacred runes. It would allow him to struggle and use his severely injured hands for a while. As Yun Nuashing said, now is not the time to rest. It was not done yet. "No problem. I can still hold on for a while." I expected that there would be an accident. After all, it's such a big thing. The trial run would also cause a huge movement in the void, and some people would notice it. The risk of being sabotaged again is not small. So one time is enough. Maple and I have already prepared for it. Now, it's still within an acceptable range. Within an acceptable range, he could not help but smile bitterly. He watched as Yun Nuashing walked out of the node of the magic circle and approached the huge pillar of time. He had just recovered, but his back was covered with fatigue again. He only felt a little sorry for him. This guy always pushing himself so hard. Yun Nuashing walked out for 10 meters and stopped. Hui followed closely beside him. The two of them formed hand seals together and changed quickly. A roar came from the brilliant Sea of Time, rolling up huge waves that were thousands of feet wide. The aura of time pressed down from above. The little angel looked at the golden light that was pressing down from the sky and hurriedly covered his vision. There was something in a monstrous golden light. In the boiling Sea of Time, there seemed to be something that was about to descend. The shaking of the Sea of Time continued for a while. Suddenly, a golden pillar of light that was about a foot thick pierced out of the Sea of Time like a long spear. It fell like raindrops and pierced deeply into the ground. The two of them pierced through the time, descending array. The golden chains that were connected to the pillars of time were also cut off amidst the sounds of explosions. Yun Nuashing and Hui turned a deaf ear to it and allowed those long spears to pierce the ground. The little angel was shocked and quickly retreated to the side of the two of them. It seemed to be safer there when the densely packed, long spears of time fell to the ground. Yun Nuashing suddenly stopped. Ren Hui maintained the magic circle. He quietly closed his eyes and lowered his right hand. His 5 fingers were constantly twisting, as if he was reaching his hand into the water to find something that was difficult to reach. His movements were also as light as if he was washing a piece of silk. Seeing this, the little angel was puzzled. It did not know what he was doing, but it was not good to ask. Caught it. A few minutes later, Yun Nuashing opened his eyes wide. He suddenly stretched out his right hand and made a grabbing motion. Then, he suddenly threw it behind him. The little angel stared at his movements closely. He really seemed to be grabbing something in his hand. It was faintly discernible like a transparent ribbon. It was not an illusion. There was really something that was constantly appearing and appearing in this space. Before Yin Nuashing stopped his actions, the palm that he was grabbing something and lit up, a bright silk thread appeared from his palm and kept appearing towards both ends. It became brighter and spread further. It was more like that thing had always existed in that place. At this moment, it was just appearing with Yin Nuashing's movements. Moreover, with the appearance of the bright white silk thread, many golden silk threads appeared in the surrounding space. They did not know where the source was, nor did they know where the final destination was. They shuttled back and forth between the pillars and the long spears from all directions. Those silk threads were not straight and orderly. They would twist and knot, just like ordinary ropes. The little angel looked at the winding silk threads and was a little stunned. It was as if it had barged into a cave of spider silk. It was surrounded by dense spider silk. It did not know where it was connected to or who made it. At a certain moment, it understood something. It looked at Yin Nuashing and the others. Could this be every day's timeline? No, every timeline's world. Does it represent or symbolize something? Yin Nuashing smiled. The second answer is correct. Every line that you see is a timeline's world. It's under the same void. There are other timelines worlds that appear due to time differences. But the range is not infinite. Right now, there are only 19,876 different timelines worlds that appear here. Close to 20,000. I think it's already a lot. If they all gather in the same void, even this void will become very crowded. That is the situation that you have predicted, right? It shook its head helplessly. Its golden eyes kept sweeping around. There was a flash of doubt in its eyes. Yin Nuashing looked at it and guessed its thoughts. She smiled and pointed at the brightest line in front of them. The origin world, the 0-point timeline is this. Oh, the brightest one. It looked at the bright line and said, oh, that bright line was the straightest among all the timeline's worlds. It appeared from afar, swept across in front of them, and then spread further. The silver-white light shone with a bright halo, and the other crooked golden lines surrounded the silver-white line like stars surrounding the moon. Even if the place of origin was very far away, they would still circle around the silver-white line and twist to other places, even if the place was very far away. It was an obvious position, as expected of the origin world. What if it's added? It looked at the two. These timelines worlds were just placed in front of it, so casually. Perhaps it was a symbol, or perhaps it was something else. It did not know what to do with the timeline's resonance. Yin Nuashing and Hui gestured at the line. Just as they were about to speak, a hurried voice came from their souls, causing their expressions to change dramatically. Lord Guardian, the Void frontline is under attack. The people at the front line are resisting. Among the invaders are those whom you are very concerned about. Lord Hui, as you thought, someone has broken into the void where the celestial realm is located. Come and hit me. There's no problem here. We can still hold on for a long time. We're just here to report. Lord Hui, don't be nervous. That kid knows battle tactics. Leave this to us. Damn it. It's that power. Let's not talk about it for now. Hui and Yin Nuashing looked at each other, a solemn look flashing across their eyes. It came over curiously, and after listening to the two, its expression changed slightly. It seemed that it was just as it had imagined. The commotion was too big, and it attracted the attention of others. Moreover, they were brazenly attacking the Void frontline, and at the same time attacking the celestial realm. A little interesting. If you can catch one, catch one. If you can't, kill without mercy. Also, be careful of that power. It's not as easy to deal with as you think. Hui replied sternly, then looked at Yin Nuashing and said, there's not much time left. While I Ching and the others are still holding on, we have to deal with it quickly. There's no need to rush. Yin Nuashing looked at him, shook its head, and looked at the huge ball of string, then looked at the time pillars in all directions and frowned. It's not the best time yet. If you act rashly and fail, you know the consequences. Hui gritted his teeth. Of course, he knew, which was why he was so anxious that he was sweating profusely. Yin Nuoxing patted him on the shoulder, bringing Hui back to his senses. Just trust them, this matter can't be rushed. Isn't he Qing the kid you think highly of? Trust him, trust that they can deal with those things well. As for us, we have to deal with this all-or-nothing big event. Being anxious will only ruin all our efforts. Right now, there may not be a second chance. Huey's hands trembled slightly. Yin Nuoxing's serious gaze calmed his nervous heart, and he took a deep breath and nodded. Okay. Yin Nuoxing patted him on the shoulder, then walked towards one end of a huge circle of strings. After Hui came back to his senses, he walked toward the other end, stopped at a place where all the strings were beginning to gather, and then sat down cross-legged. The little angel looked at the two of them, then took a few steps back and turned its back. Golden flames gathered along its arm and condensed into a golden long sword in front of it. Its vigilant eyes constantly swept across the space. This was the last step. It would not allow anyone to come and destroy it. If someone really managed to break through the defenses of the realm of the gods, it would be the final barrier. Perhaps there was still another defense. Don't look at how Yin Nuo planet was completely focused on guiding something. If there really was an emergency, that guy would definitely explode and cause trouble. It's done. It was just about to set up some protective charms at the side when it heard Huey's excited cry. It staggered, and the angelic sacred sword in its hand almost flew out. It turned around with a confused and blank look on its face. What does done mean? It's only been 2 or 3 minutes, and it's done? When it turned around, it saw Yin Nuoxing and Hui changing their hand seals. They opened their hands, and 2 blue gold rings from the 2 ends of the time axis shrank towards the middle. After a while, they touched in the middle, and that place was the closest to the origin world of all the time axis worlds. There were countless intersections on that plane. The 2 of them shouted softly, and Yin Nuoxing's palms clenched tightly. The 2 rings suddenly shrank, and on that plane, all the time axis world were squeezed towards the silver-white string. When they were about to enter, the 2 rings trembled and stopped, as if they had encountered a strong resistance. They stubbornly stuck there and refused to shrink. The time axis worlds that had been forcibly moved seemed to want to rebound back to their original positions, but they were all restrained by the rings. Under the confrontation of the 2 forces, even the golden strings in other places that were not locked by the rings began to change. Nearly 20,000 golden strings began to weakly sway and dance wildly, but this resistance made them get closer and closer to the silver-white string. All right, stop resisting. Go in, you. Hui waved his hand, and a surge of origin energy gushed out from the time pillar and fell into the 2 rings. In an instant, the resisting force lost its resistance and was squeezed into the origin world by the 2 rings. Boom. Boom. A frenzied battle was taking place in the void. Both sides were warriors who were armed to the teeth, and the energy shockwaves that filled the sky dyed the pure black land of the void into a world of colors. The Grand Monarch of the Green Clan was leading his men in a frenzied charge. He had already fought against the enemies that emerged from the void several times, but this time, something unexpected happened. This time, a leader-like figure had appeared on the battlefield. This figure had extremely high spiritual intelligence and was a normal Empyrean god of origin, not a mobile bomb that only had strength and no defense. More importantly, he could talk. Although the Empyrean god of origin only said the word kill at the beginning of the battle and did not say anything else, this also meant that the Empyrean god of origin was someone who could talk. He had to capture one of them and bring him back. He had plenty of ways to pry open his mouth. Energy rumbled, blood dripped, and the darkness of the void was almost invisible. Only the eyes of countless Empyrean gods and Empyrean gods of origin were blood red, and they were spraying blood and energy on the faces of their enemies. There were enemies in all directions, and energy rumbled everywhere. I Ching roared in his soul as he commanded this battle. Even if it was a battle between Empyrean gods of origin, it was not a battle that could be ended with just random attacks. That was a unique tactic that only Lord Hui and his friends could use. Green's eyes widened. He killed an enemy with a single palm strike, and he still had to fight against the leader-like figure. He had many wounds on his body, but the opponent could not defeat him for the time being. If he did not want to capture the leader, he had plenty of ways to grind the man in front of him into ashes. Green thunder roll. He made a grabbing motion in the air, and green lightning surged out of the void, bringing the collapsed void to gather in his palm. Just as he was about to strike out with his palm, a strange rumbling sound suddenly came from the void, resounding through the universe like glass shattering. No, it was the sound of a drum mixed with the sound of a drum shattering glass. At the same time, a part of the void suddenly collapsed, startling him. He was only halfway through the activation of the vast sea of green lightning. And when did this move become so powerful, shattering the void before it even started to release its power? Bang, bang. The rumble of the void shattering attracted the attention of everyone on the battlefield. Not only in this part of the void, but also in the front line of the void, all the lives that were fighting desperately just a second ago stopped in an instant. Countless people raised their heads and looked at the violent tremors in the void. It was as if reality and illusion were constantly switching, overlapping and separating constantly. Oh, your stupid actions will destroy you and this world. The man who seemed to be the leader sneered in a low voice, as if he knew that his purpose today could not be achieved. He turned around and waved his hand, about to retreat with the vast army. Qing Jun's eyes flashed with coldness, and the plundered energy in his palm was about to gush out. However, I Ching's voice sounded in his mind, preventing everyone from attacking and pursuing, making him smack his lips in displeasure. He could only watch the enemy quickly withdraw from the battlefield. When the phantoms came into contact with reality, the tremors became stronger and stronger. There seemed to be countless overlapping shadows appearing in front of their eyes. They could see countless world lights emerging and disappearing, constantly flickering, as if there was a big earthquake in the void. Everyone standing in the void felt dizzy. In a blur, they seemed to see a big hole open in the golden time barrier, and countless things poured down. It started, and it's almost over. The whole process takes a little bit of time, but when it's finally completed, it only takes a moment. We watched as the wildly dancing world of the timeline continued to calm down, and then fell toward the silver-white silk thread, and finally merged into it. He couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief. The future. At least now, we can talk about the future. Yin Nuashing accelerated to guide the last world of the timeline into the silver-white silk thread. Only then did she wipe away her sweat and breathe a sigh of relief. It's done. Boom! The whole void trembled violently, as if all the power of the earthquake had been concentrated in this last second and erupted, causing the people in the void to be thrown off their feet and stagger. When they stabilized their bodies, they quickly raised their heads and saw that the originally lonely void seemed to have suddenly bloomed with silver flowers and fiery trees. Countless world lights, emitting a white brilliance, appeared in front of their eyes. Following the rules of the void, they were constantly connected and turned into a huge world group. The huge net seemed to spread to the end of the void. At this moment, everyone's eyes were sluggish. Even in some voids that were recognized as very barren, countless world lights appeared, making everyone who saw this scene dumbfounded. It's a success. I Ching exhaled fiercely, raised his arm, and wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth. At last, I didn't let you down. I'm exhausted. Chapter 1274. The resonance of the timeline ended peacefully. Close to 20,000 timeline worlds were forcibly squeezed into the origin world. Although the matter was done, the entire sea of time was turbulent because of the huge energy disturbance caused by the incident. It was boiling, magnificent, and turbulent. The sea and the sky seemed to be about to turn upside down. The sea of time, which had finally calmed down for a few days, returned to its violent state. Actually, The situation was not bad. The time nodes that had been set up long ago formed a double-layered sandwich time barrier. The two layers sandwiched the sea of time at a suitable position to ensure that the sea and sky would not turn upside down. It also released the pressure that the sea of time was under. Now, they could only pray that the aftermath would calm down before it destroyed the barrier. According to their calculations, it should not be a problem. However, there was no guarantee that no one would be bored enough to shoot a blast of energy into the sea of time. If they hit the barrier, then, as long as it was not the energy of the peak of the origin, it would not be much of a problem. Then, it seemed that they could be more relieved. Then, what happened after the many worlds merged? The world was peaceful. Everyone was stunned. Joining forces to explore the outer worlds and create? That was not very likely. Putting aside the matter of the upper and middle realms, the timeline world did not have the saying that it would turn one by one. It could only allow the entire timeline world to merge. Therefore, the lower realms that had been destroyed long ago also regained their vitality. Those worlds were now secretly moved to the middle realms by the cooperation of the gods and the Empyrean god of origin. There was naturally a certain degree of danger in bypassing the abyssal death mist. Even if the people of the celestial realm had their own unique means, there were still some who accidentally touched the abyssal death mist. They thought that there would be a massacre, but the black mist did not even care about them. It was as if it was just a scenery in the void, pretending to be harmless. Those who did not know would think that it was a special product of the origin world. As for the worlds that should have appeared between the middle realms and the lower realms that were covered by the abyssal death mist, everyone was prepared to rush in and kill when those worlds fell into the abyssal death mist and cause chaos. However, the abyssal death mist was empty and silent. Those worlds that should have fallen into the abyssal death mist had all entered the deep void where they originally were, and did not emerge from the surface void where the world orbs were. It had been 3 days since the situation was discovered, and the known worlds in the lower realms were almost empty. Everyone who had not rested yet went into the deep void to fish out the world orbs that were somehow buried underground, squeezing them into the space between the middle realms and the upper realms. At this moment, the void was filled with as many world orbs as there were stars in the sky, and there was not a single empty space to be seen. That's right, there was not a single empty space in the void that was surrounded by the void frontline. Even if it could be expanded to the size of the middle realms, it would only spread those worlds out a little. After all, almost 20,000 worlds in the timeline had all squeezed in at once, and there was no telling how many world orbs there were. If there was no abyssal death mist, this would probably be the most prosperous scene in the history of the void then. There was also the most chaotic scene, after discovering that a large number of worlds had suddenly appeared beside their own world. It was normal for them to investigate out of curiosity. As if discovering a new continent, countless life forms were drilling around in the void, meeting and greeting the life forms of other worlds, and then they really started to greet each other, casually fighting in the void. No one knew why, but they just started to fight when they met. Perhaps they suddenly realized that there were so many life forms of the same level that they rarely saw, and so they started to fight? Who would have guessed that the common tongue of all races was still being spoken in the void? Speaking the same language and almost the same race, they started to set off fireworks in the void without warning. If they continued to fight like that, they would all be annihilated before they could become combat forces according to Hui and Yin Nuoxing's plan. However, both the Guardian and the Observer were a little busy at the moment. The former was busy searching for the emptied lower plane and the middle plane with all his might. The countless worlds created by the resonance of the timeline was an opportunity for them, but it was also an opportunity for the underworld. They might just happen to be lacking worlds and could not find enough light, orbs. They had thought about this matter, but there was no other way. They could only search and protect as many worlds as they could before the underworld destroyed the new worlds. That was all they could do. They were so busy that their heads were in a mess. Moreover, the front line of the void was not calm. Many people were not clear about what Hui and Yin Nuoxing wanted to do. Now that they were out in the open, they realized that their own world had become the backyard of others, coming and going as they pleased. Everywhere was not peaceful. These trivial matters that Yin Nuoxing called the nature of mortals were increasing and would eventually evolve into a pressure that gathered on the entire front line of the void. At present, the front line of the void was in an uproar. "What the hell have you done?" Amidst the extremely resentful and dissatisfied voices, there was the sound of people banging on the table and hammering on the wall. The entire tower trembled slightly. Hui turned his head and saw that those fools had brought more people to block his way. Hui, who had just dealt with a lot of things, felt a headache coming on. Currently, the people at the front lines of the void were able to deduce that this was the work of the gods after witnessing the actions of the realm of the gods. Even if they knew about it, they had been given a few pointers beforehand, saying that they were going to deal with the upcoming chaos. But they had never imagined that it would be such chaos. Countless worlds have crossed over from other timeline worlds. Countless worlds. Now, within the sealed area of the void, because of the countless additional worlds, it has become a mess. The man walked 3 or 4 meters in front of Hui with an imposing manner. "Lord Guardian of the realm of the gods, do you think that by pulling these guys into the origin world, they will become a living force? Look at the situation now. Before they become a force, the void will be destroyed by them. The realm of order is digging its own grave. It will exhaust itself until it is dead. This is the will of the void." Huey's head was throbbing. He did not want to talk nonsense with the man. This is the only way to have a chance of winning. The enemy's strength is far beyond our imagination. The original strength of the realm of order is not enough. The enemy has not played enough games. When they lose their patience, the front line of the void will collapse easily. The void has become like this, and you are still talking about the chance of winning. The man laughed and spread his arms. Now that things have come to this, you are still saying such things to sway people's hearts. See, because of the existence of the void frontline, the spread of the abyssal death mist has been stopped. The enemy did not attack because they were afraid. We have also maintained full preparation. But you, Lord Guardian of the realm of the gods, you are one of the guardians of the first city of the void. A few days ago, when the front line of the void was attacked, you were not there. Now you are here spouting nonsense. Are the people of the realm of the gods so incompetent? The first realm of the void is really disappointing. Hui pinched his face with one hand. His head hurts, his heart hurts. Come to think of it, he had not slept for 4 days. For days without sleep was actually nothing. However, after that day, when the timeline resonated, he rested for 21 minutes and 36 seconds before he received a report from the people of the realm of the gods at the front line of the void. He had not recovered his half-crippled Qilin arm, had not recovered his spirit and soul before he was dragged out. After that, he began to overdraw his spirit to deal with all kinds of things. His spirit was highly concentrated for 3 days. So dizzy, so nauseous. I miss Maple's cooking. That guy must be cooped up in a small mountain and having a good time with his little angel. Why did he have to deal with these stupid things? No, why did he have to face these stupid people? After a moment, Hui pinched his own face and took a deep breath. After a while, he opened his eyes again. There was an indescribable pressure that made people's hearts palpitate. He calmly looked at the dozen or so people in front of him. They were all guardians of the first city of the void. They were all representatives of their world. He calmly said, "Apu." Everyone was stunned for a moment. After a few seconds, their expressions became extremely ugly and angry. "What, are you angry?" Hui continued to cover his face and laughed out loud. When Maple first came to the first city of the void, he said that this damned barrier gave you too much unnecessary sense of security. It made you mistakenly believe that you were really safe. What? Do you think that you have understood the strength of the other side? That you can sit back and relax from now on? Hui put down his hand and sneered. Are all of you fools? Everyone was furious. If that is all they have, how could the death mist of the abyss sweep across the entire lower and middle planes? The war has gone on for 10 whole eras without ending. They did not even show a hint of fatigue. The divine realm could not do it. Even the Chanyuan realm and the Saint Spirit realm together could not do it. Do you think that you can do such a thing? Hui sneered and took a few steps to the side. He stood at the edge and looked at the city below through the huge glass. When Maple first said that, I thought that he was a little extreme. I even advised him to have some hope. But now, I'm beginning to doubt whether there is any hope in the Void frontline. Have you all forgotten how you were chased away by them during the battle in the Middle Plains? Have you forgotten the pain after the scar has healed? Compared to you all who have been hiding in the Void frontline barrier for a long time and think that you are safe and sound, I think that those newcomers have more hope. This sentence was a complete fallout. Anyway, we did not feel that there was any benefit in talking nonsense with these people here. If they fell out, so be it. He shook his head, turned around, and walked past the crowd. He glanced at the group of people coldly and narrowed his eyes. How disappointing. This Void City had... Creak! That person clenched his fists tightly and his face darkened. His eyes were filled with anger that was about to overflow. A terrifying aura exuded from his body, causing the entire pagoda and the entire Void First City to tremble. The people behind him also looked like they were about to make a move. It was as if they were about to attack at the slightest disagreement. What? You don't like it? You want to fight? Hui laughed and rubbed his light-colored dark circles. He turned around and looked at the dozen people. There are hundreds of forces in the first city of the Void. There are hundreds of realm protectors, path protectors, and realm lords. If we fight here, what do you think the people of the other worlds will think? That person took a deep breath and slowly retracted his aura. However, the expression on his face became even more gloomy. He knew that they would not gain anything by fighting. No matter what, the realm of the gods was still the infamous realm of the gods. In the Void frontline, the first city of the Void was a full formation of order. Among them, 70% of the worlds were closely related to the realm of the gods. There was a faint trend of them being led by the realm of the gods. Even the Chanyuan realm and the Saint Spirit realm were no exception. The remaining 30% were scattered and formed their own factions. The current chaotic situation in the Void was a headache for everyone. They were no exception. Their own worlds were in such a mess that they were badly battered. Otherwise, they would not have come to find the initiator of the situation in a fit of anger. But even if they really did find the initiator of the situation, it was useless. He took a deep breath and turned around. His face was calm. No, it was just my state of mind just now. Please don't misunderstand, Guardian. We are just anxious about the current situation. With the addition of countless worlds, there is indeed a lot of combat power. There are many more Empyrean gods and Empyrean gods, but they are all in a mess. No one is willing to submit to anyone. How can it be a combat power? He crossed his arms and glanced at him from the corner of his eyes. He snorted in his heart. This guy is really good at holding back. If he fought just now, he could have reasonably kicked these guys out. No, I've been influenced by Maple. I've learned to think with his way of thinking. Hui shook his head, turned around, and walked toward the door. He waved his hand towards the air and said, "You all know what to do. This is an opportunity in all aspects. It depends on whether we can grasp it or not. The law of the Void is that the strong prey on the weak, and the strong are respected. Don't you all understand that?" "I understand." He put his hands together. His face was still gloomy. The silver-white figure in front of him had disappeared from the corridor. Will letting him go just like that? The others could not help but ask. What they're doing has subverted the order of the Void. Shut up. Your trivial matters and my trivial matters are worthless in his eyes. Don't think that he doesn't know what we are thinking. He waved his hand and said in a low voice, "In his eyes, there is only the big picture. The rest of... But now is not the time. Yes, that is an opportunity. Let's see who can seize it." An awkward look appeared on the man's face. He bitterly shut his mouth. When he heard the last part, he showed a thoughtful look. Opportunity. There seemed to be many ways to say it. Hui walked out of the tower. I Ching, Green, and the others followed. The former glanced at the tower and waved his hand. "Leave some people who are good at hiding and disguising in the Void frontline. The rest follow me back to the realm of the gods. There have been a lot of things recently. We need people." Green put his hands together and then frowned. "Lord Hui, Are we just going to leave this place alone? I see that you don't look good. Did those bastards say something? Do you want me to? Hui sighed and waved his hand dismissively. Indeed, it's not that I don't care about it. I'm just asking you to leave some people behind to gather information. We can't catch the spies. Maple is right. Instead of spending the effort to catch the spies, it's better to prepare them as enemies. Right now, the void is in chaos and many worlds have appeared. We need more people to deal with those matters. I Ching put his hands together and immediately made arrangements with his soul. Green also sent a message to mobilize people and prepare to return home. By the way, I Ching, Green, I have something to ask you. Hui raised his eyebrows and smiled as if he was interested. What do you think about the current situation? I Ching and Ching Jun, who had just finished arranging things, were both taken aback. They looked at each other. I Ching scratched his face, which was as young as an 18-year-old boy, and pondered for a while. Ching Jun blurted out, "Fight? Make a fuss. Are you nervous?" Hui smiled and looked at I Ching. I Ching raised his head and looked at I Ching. He said hesitantly, "Master Hui, if I tell you the truth, will you be angry?" "Go ahead. Feng has already told me a lot. You shouldn't be able to tell me any worse news than his." I Ching nodded and whispered, "It's still not optimistic, whether it's what we have to deal with now or in the future. Indeed, after the time axis resonance, there are many worlds and many living forces, but it will take a long time to integrate these forces. It will also take some time for them to really realize the danger of the death fog in the abyss and what they have to face in the future. Moreover, the death fog in the abyss, the underworld, as Lord Hui and Lord Feng said, there are so many of those things, or..." As he spoke, his face turned ugly, and he couldn't help but sigh. Green patted him on the shoulder and said, "I Ching, don't worry so much. Whether it's a blessing or a curse, we can't avoid it. Whether it's a blessing or a curse, we have to face it. It's useless to think too much. We just have to do our best. As for the rest, we can only leave it to fate." We glanced at him in surprise and smiled. It's rare that you can say something like that after being reckless all the way to high-tier origin. Green scratched his head awkwardly and quickly changed the topic. "Aside from the first city of the void, how should we deal with the people in the other places of the void frontline? As I said, it's better to gather forces and quickly solve the problem of internal problems. Other things aside, even the light of the realm of the gods is surrounded by countless worlds. I can't even find my own home after so many worlds appeared last time. Those worlds are also at this center of the void gathering point. There are many champions, but they probably can't compare to the realm of the gods." Hui nodded and was about to say that the realm of the gods was invincible when he shut his mouth at the last moment. He muttered to himself for a moment, and Feng's face flashed in his mind. Don't let your guard down. All the forces of an upper realm can't beat the realm of the gods. If 2 can't, 3, 4, even 100 worlds besieging the realm of the gods, we could still hold them off. However, if we really angered the realm of the gods would be embarrassed. Now is indeed the time to solve the internal problems, but not to let the realm of the gods become that problem. I Ching nodded. "We understand. We will be careful when dealing with the problems of other worlds. What's the situation in the realm of the gods now? There are many outsiders, all of them from other timelines. They're all beings who have heard of the realm of the gods. Most of them went because of the name, but a small number of them may have never heard of the realm of the gods. After all, there's so many timelines, it's normal that they haven't heard of the realm of the gods since it's too far away. Also, a small number of them are there to cause trouble." Green shrugged. 90% of the realm of the gods' forces have been taken away, leaving only a small part in the mainland. I'm worried that. It's fine, we'll be back soon. As for the problem just now, we'll only leave a small number of people who can ensure their own safety at the front line of the void to act as spies to ensure information. Call the rest back, and send some people who are rational and strategic to solve the problems of some worlds along the way. At least let them fully understand the threat of the abyssal death mist. Let's not talk about the underworld for now." Hui sighed as he spoke. He could not help but say, "I also want to take a break. Just like Maple, hiding in the realm of the gods and being a salted fish all day long. I Ching arranged a series of things. Suddenly, as if remembering something, he said to Hui doubtfully, "Speaking of which, Lord Hui, when we were waiting for you outside just now, I think I heard a voice." The message is a little vague. I think it said that Lord Maple had a little trouble and asked you to go back and take a look when you're free. I'll take my leave first. I'll leave the rest of you guys. I Ching and Ching Jun looked sluggish as they watched Hui Darren disappear without a trace like a ray of light, leaving only a panicked voice. The former's unfinished words fell now. "It's just a small matter. You must not go back in a panic. Did something happen to Lord Feng?" He scratched his head and said the last sentence to Ching Jun Green stuck out his tongue. "How would we know? But Lord Maple, I have a little speculation. I think I know who he is." "Oh." I Ching perked up and looked interested. "Actually, I feel a little bit too. Every time it's about Lord Maple, Lord Hui panics to the point of losing his sense of propriety. It must be a very important person of the same status as him. At first, I thought it was an old friend. I won't say any more. Big brother Ching, tell me. You're almost done?" Ching Jun knocked on his head and looked at him with an embarrassed smile. Then he said, "It's probably the most mysterious one in our family, the one who has never met before the other of the two priesthoods." I Ching smiled and nodded. Yin Nuoxing's identity fit the characteristics of that priesthoods too well. Hiding in the dark of the realm of the gods, Lord Hui did not introduce him to others and only called him an old friend. Well, I can understand a little. After all, it's normal for an observer to not show up. And it seems like he doesn't plan to show up either. Cough, it's best we don't mention it. Otherwise, I feel like we'll be beaten up in the void until we lose our memories. Thinking of that scene, Green trembled and nodded with a smile. Yes. We don't know anything. Don't know. Chapter 1275. The realm of the gods was the number one great world in the void. The void here referred to the void of the 8 elements realm. If it had to be said, it would not be a problem to call it the number one great world in the great origin realm. Regardless of whether it was theoretical or not, there was no world more special than the world that the origin heavenly gods had personally created. This realm was revered by most of the people in the origin world. Even the neighboring timeline had a reputation of the realm of the gods. Most of them were infamous because of the cultivators who left the realm of the gods when they traveled to other timelines. It was no exaggeration to say that the warriors of the realm of the gods could turn the entire void upside down. That was referring to the high-level forces of the realm of the gods. But this saying became invalid after the emergence of the underworld. Now it was the other way around. A single person from the underworld could turn the entire void upside down. Leaving those digressions aside, the realm of the gods was very lively at the moment. There were almost more foreign life forms than the primal life forms in the realm of the gods. After all, the primal life forms had gone to help defend the front line of the void. 90% of their life forms had been taken away, so the remaining 10% was naturally not much. Chaos. It was normal for there to be chaos. Now that the rear of the realm of the gods was empty, it would be easy for others to take advantage of the situation. Hui and Yin Nuoxing had also thought about this problem in the past. Their conclusion was that they could break through the defensive barrier of the Pillar of Creation and isolate the realm of the gods from the outside world. However, the barrier could not be kept open forever. The amount of energy consumed every day was astronomical. Moreover, when they carried out the timeline resonance, as well as the one a while ago, most of the realm of the gods' energy was used. It was not only the energy stored in the Pillar of Creation, but also the energy stored in the realm of the gods. With such a large amount of energy being extracted, the energy of the realm of the gods had decreased slightly. If the barrier of creation was kept open, the energy of the realm of the gods would slowly decrease, so it had to be closed temporarily. Then a lot of people came in with all kinds of thoughts. Those who also possessed the energy of the Empyrean gods and the origin god were running around the Pantheon world with all kinds of thoughts in their minds. They were observing the rumored number one major realm in the void. It seemed like there were also people who were here to pick a fight, some young and hot-blooded idiots. The void was never sure of idiots, but sometimes idiots were easy to deal with. However, those idiots had already fought their way to the Pantheon world, and those guys had yet to return. Little Angel recorded and spoke truthfully. She whispered in his ear, "Will there be any problems?" Only a portion of the Empyrean gods were left behind to guard the realm of the gods. Not a single Empyrean god of origin was left behind. The remaining 10% of the living beings were mostly ordinary people. Of course, we don't include the demonic beasts and demonic beasts that have yet to take human form. The Pantheon world was so prosperous that it was hard to imagine. The base of the living beings was the largest in number. As a world with countless living beings, the base of the living beings was actually less than 10%. The remaining 90% of the living beings were beings who had the power to take charge of a region. Basically, they were all beings who were at least mid-tier gods. Little Angel put down the crystal ball in her hand and let it roll a few meters away on the cloud. The crystal ball rolled back to her and touched her little white foot. The cloud was quiet and there was no sound at all. It was a windless day, and the cloud was lying lazily and motionlessly, just like a certain someone. She tilted her head and looked at the guy who was sleeping peacefully under her wing. She reached out her hand and gently tapped his nose. She could not help but smile. He was actually not asleep. With his current physical condition, he could not fall asleep. He just felt more comfortable by curling up like this. When he said those words in front of her, she was stunned for a long time. Before she could react, he had already crawled under her wing. "How are you doing? Are you feeling better?" Yin Nuashing's eyebrows trembled slightly. Her long eyelashes lifted, and her black eyes were a little dull. She shook her head and said, "It is impossible to get out that part of the origin energy that is fused into my body. This energy is the most powerful and special energy I have ever seen. It has a lot of flavors, and it seems to have originally belonged to the gods of origin. This energy was probably born under their influence, so it has a unique, he couldn't describe it for the time being. If he could describe it properly, he wouldn't say that it was the most special. Right now, the energy was stuck in his body. It followed the flow of energy in his body and went round and round. He couldn't expel it and couldn't refine it. For now, he couldn't refine it. Yin Nuashing looked up at the sky and was a little lost in thought. She could hear some restless sounds coming from some places in the Pantheon world. The restless movements seemed to be the sounds of battle. There were also other sounds that were probably made by outsiders. The little angel straightened her legs and lifted Yin Nuashing's head to rest on her soft thighs. She stroked Yin Nuashing's long hair with her jade hands, and a warm smile hung on her holy face. "Get better quickly, you troublesome fellow." Yin Nuashing closed her eyes, wrinkled her nose, and struggled a little. She actually felt a little relaxed when she was stroked by Hulu. After thinking for a while, she stopped struggling and just lay there. Yin Nuashing was a little surprised. She jokingly said, "I never thought that the great observer would show such a weak side. What a surprise. Don't talk. You're just a pillow and a blanket." Yin Nuashing snorted softly and tilted her head. But considering that she was his pillow, it was useless to tilt her head. At most, she would twist her neck and turn it back. Puff. The little angel covered her mouth and giggled. She stroked his long hair with her jade-like hands. The weather was nice and the sun was shining brightly. The weather today was nice and cozy. If it wasn't for the fact that there was something difficult to deal with in his body, and if it wasn't for the fact that the void was in a mess and full of troubles. But it didn't matter. It was fine as long as it was like this. She was in good mood right now. She was enjoying this quiet time with him. It was very comfortable. It was a different feeling when she was running around with him in the void. Now, it was a different feeling when she was running around with him in the void. Yin Nuashing obviously didn't intend to solve the chaotic vortex this time. He didn't have the energy or the mind to solve it. In the past 2 or 3 years, the side effects overlapped with each other. Basically, after one was cured, another would come immediately. The time axis resonance that had just passed a few days ago was because Yin Nuoxing's body had directly come into contact with the power of origin. Even though the mark left by the heavenly god of destruction had blocked the calamity of destruction, there was still a small problem left behind. He still couldn't get rid of the power of origin that had entered his body. Yin Nuoxing didn't know what Yin Nuoxing was thinking. She suddenly bent down. Yin Nuoxing was still in a daze when he suddenly felt a fragrant wind blowing on his face. Divine light entered his eyes. Just as he was about to open his eyes, his whole body stiffened and his breath froze. After a while, when the sunlight weakened a little, Yin Nuoxing finally came back to his senses and sat up stiffly. His face was full of shock and confusion. He covered his mouth with his trembling hand. He felt that he had been frightened, and even his breath was a little disordered. Yin Nuoxing's face turned slightly red when he saw Yin Nuoxing licking her lips. What are you doing? Nothing. Yin Nuoxing flicked her long silver hair disapprovingly. I'm trying to see if I can help you get that energy out. You. Yin Nuoxing rolled his eyes. His face was full of dizziness. All right, you're already an adult. Don't worry about these things. Anyway, you and your sister have kissed many times. Yin Nuoxing pushed his head back onto its lap. It didn't seem to feel anything about the scene just now. Yin Nuoxing was confused. He couldn't help but mutter, exactly because of this. How am I supposed to face that girl when I go back? What's so difficult about facing her? Yin Nuoxing smiled and lowered its head, pretending that it wanted to do it again. When it saw Yin Nuoxing's face alternating between red and white, it found it a little funny. Yin Nuoxing put its nose on his nose. If you like her, just say it. If you care, admit it. There are many kinds of love. In the end, it's just like that. For people like us who don't know when we'll reach the end of our lives and when we'll end our lives, nothing is more important than the present. We can talk about the future, but it doesn't matter if we don't talk about it. Because Yin Nuoxing rubbed its face against his. Every day is precarious. If you have time to care about the future, it's better to live the present. Well, but I know that you're always looking at the future and thinking a lot. Because there's no other way, right? But if you keep thinking about it, you'll miss the person in front of you. Yin Nuoxing straightened up with a smile and covered his face with her jade hand. The love you have for her. I guess you don't know it yourself. There's a lot of love, but in the end, it changed a little. Stop talking. Yin Nuoxing panicked. He quickly covered his eyes. Stop talking, seeing that he was about to be scalded to death by it. Yin Nuoxing smiled as if it had succeeded and changed the topic. Then let's talk about something else. Just now, there was a burst of high-tier origin energy in the realm of the gods. The 2, 3, no. For people who were fighting were not from the realm of the gods. Yin Nuoxing was speechless. What a sharp change of topic. It's going to be bad if they continue to fight. Aren't you going to do something about it? Yin Nuoxing tilted his head and almost buried his face in Yin Nuoxing's stomach. There's nothing to do. The creation's barrier is in a state of silence. Although it doesn't isolate the realm of the gods from the outside, it at least ensures the stability of the realm of the gods. No matter how much they fight, they won't sink the realm of the gods. It's already good enough that they can affect a small part of the realm of the gods. The cities of immortals have defensive formations. In this era, those defensive formations are all of the origin level. Little Angel gave it some thought before replying, Oh, this was because there was suppression and there were many defensive measures that enveloped this great realm. Even if the Guardians weren't there and the observers didn't want to interfere, they wouldn't be able to affect anything. However, the commotion caused by the great battle was a little big, really big. From the edge of the Myriad God realm all the way to the center of the Myriad God realm, there were traces of battle everywhere. Although the two of them didn't know what they were fighting for or what they were fighting for, they could deduce something after some thought. The timeline and the realm of the void were fused. Currently, only a part of the people in the origin world knew who was behind it. The others who were dragged into the void were still confused. They were just following their own orders or the orders of the people in their own world to come out and observe. Or something else. They would descend to the same place together and appear in the same place together. Conflicts would arise whenever they met, and naturally, war would break out frequently. And this was just what they saw in the realm of the gods. There must be more fierce battles in the void, but those had nothing to do with them for the time being. Little Angel had been watching the battle in the four directions. 10 high-level heavenly gods of origin clashed fiercely, and huge energy waves filled the sky. The movement was very far away, and by the time it reached the ground, there was only a faint light. Some of the god-level and high-level gods were able to notice it, but they obviously didn't intend to join the fun. Not long after, 2 of the 4 sides were defeated almost at the same time. 6 of them fled madly into the realm of the gods and scattered to different places. The other 4 looked at each other vigilantly. 2 of them chased after one side, while the other 2 looked at each other and didn't intend to chase after them. They landed in the realm of the gods. Little Angel frowned and pushed Yin-Nuashing with her jade-like hand. Someone was flying towards them, and, judging from the situation, it seemed to be intentional. After all, she didn't hide any of her aura. The person who fled probably sensed the movement of a powerful life form here. Little Angel lowered her head and saw that Yin-Nuashing didn't move. She couldn't help but shake her head. It seemed that she didn't intend to pay attention to them. So be it. A wave of energy pressure came from afar. It was the person who had fled earlier. When he passed by, he looked at the 2 people in surprise. It seemed that there was something different from what he had expected. He couldn't help but be stunned for a moment. But he didn't stay for long because of this. His body shook and directly disappeared from where he was. Did you see anyone fleeing from here? About a minute later, there was a fluctuation in the space 100 feet away. 2 figures came out side by side. They glanced at Yin-Nuashing and Little Angel who were on the cloud and said in a cold voice, "What about the common language of the myriad races?" It murmured in its heart. It seemed that everyone was speaking the common language of the myriad races. The common language of the myriad races was created by the ancient gods and spread throughout the void and the 8 elements realm in the late mythological era. After many years, it had become the language that everyone was accustomed to speaking. Little Angel closed her eyes and put her jade-like hand on Yin-Nuashing's face and neck. She didn't say a word and just breathed quietly. She was so calm that it seemed like she didn't know anything. The 2 of them were enjoying the quiet time that belonged to them. Once they opened their mouth, they would break it, so they didn't intend to say anything. One of the 2 people looked around anxiously. When he saw that the 2 of them didn't intend to reply, his eyes were filled with coldness. He was about to shout when the other person who had just opened his mouth stopped him with a serious and dignified expression. He felt a little uneasy. He gently cupped his hands and pulled his companion back. "Sorry to disturb you. We don't have any other intentions." After saying that, he carefully retreated. His companion was stunned. Just as he was about to shout angrily, Yin-Nuashing casually opened her eyes. Her black eyes narrowed slightly and looked at the 2 people from the corner of her eyes. After a moment, she slowly closed her eyes again. That person's body seemed to be frozen. He hurriedly pulled his companion and retreated quickly. He didn't care about chasing after the 2 people and rushed out of the realm of the gods as if his life depended on it. "Hey, what's wrong with you? We represent our world. Although we don't take the initiative to cause trouble, but shut up." Those 2, based on their auras, they must be from the realm of the gods. He gritted his teeth and spoke in a voice as soft as a mosquito's. Just as he said that, he felt a gaze from afar looking at his back. He felt a chill run down his spine, and he fled even faster. The Little Angel lay down and hugged him to sleep. Yin-Nuashing opened her eyes and looked at it. She pouted, but after thinking about it, she decided to let it be. When she saw this, she couldn't help but smile. She stretched out her arms and wrapped them around his neck and waist. She murmured in her heart, "Just a little longer, just a little longer." Just like this, let them quietly pass through this time that is gradually fading away. The feeling she inherited from her. She wanted to look at him, so she just had to look at him like this. Just like this, let him rest a little longer, just a little longer. Yin Nuoxing closed his eyes tightly and didn't look at her slightly eager gaze. He didn't know what he was avoiding, nor did he know if he was avoiding something. In short, it wasn't good for him to open his eyes in this atmosphere, so he just let her stare at him. This atmosphere was maintained for as long as 2 hours, until another aura appeared on the cloud. At that time, the two people had already fallen asleep. Hui, who had just landed, saw their intimate scene and slapped his hand over his mouth, fearing that he would be overly excited and say something that would wake the two up. That radiant look of exultation seemed to indicate that he had discovered something joyous. He excitedly took out 2 identical rings from the space array and trembled as he approached the two people. He grabbed Yin Nuoxing's hand and put it on, then gently put it on the little angel's hand. After he was done, he jumped back and looked at the two people with an inexplicable expression of happiness and intoxication. Well, although I prepared it for myself, it seems that I won't be using it in a short period of time. Then I'll give it to you. Just take it as he. After muttering and laughing evilly, we walked over again. Just as he was about to wake them up, the two people opened their eyes first and turned their heads in unison. They saw that his face was still flushed, and there were still remnants of excitement. They both had a puzzled look on their faces. It seems that the quiet time has come to an end for the time being. It sighed a little regretfully and pulled Yin Nuoxing to stand up. Get up, don't sleep anymore. I don't want to move. Yin Nuoxing muttered. Although she was complaining, she let it pull her up after complaining. Then, he noticed that there was an extra ring on the ring finger of his left hand. It was inlaid with a purplish-black gem. It was very beautiful and very bright. He especially noticed that the little angel also had a similar ring on her hand. It was exactly the same. He suddenly felt that the light was so bright that he was dumbfounded. After a while, the two people reacted at the same time and looked at Hui together. The latter solemnly chanted half a Taoist name and half a Buddhist name. Then, with a serious face, he said, "The things over there are done. It's time to deal with your matter. Tell me, how's your body?" Wait a minute, calm down. Impulsiveness is the biggest sin of the gods. Maple. Wah. After hitting Hui with a stick, Yin Nuoxing rolled her eyes and reached out to take it off. But after trying for a long time, it didn't move at all. He couldn't help but frown. After looking at it for a while, he took a deep breath and said softly, "Hui, I remember this is that ring, right? It was originally kept by you." Hui, who flew back from the sky in a sorry state, heard this. He flicked his long hair and gave a thumbs up. He grinned and showed 8 shining big teeth. Wearing it means you have feelings, and it will never change until death. You can't take it off? Oh, don't struggle. You said that there was nothing between you at first. Look, you can wear this unique ring in the void smoothly. What else do you have to say? Suddenly, Yin Nuoxing looked at him as if he was looking at a maggot. The guardian was so scared that his whole body turned gray. The little angel couldn't help but chuckle. The laughter made Yin Nuoxing's body stiffen. She turned to look at it and couldn't help but look at the ring on its hand. Isn't it very good? She smiled and leaned against his back. She wrapped her arms around his shoulders and whispered into his ear. I'll tell you what she wants to say. This is her intention. Then, Yin Nuoxing turned gray in an instant. Her body, which had not recovered, lost her strength and fell into the arms of the little angel. She hugged him with a smirk and blew into his ear, "Stupid little star." Chapter 1276. The first 3 days were just a matter of changing locations and familiarizing themselves with a new environment, which was equivalent to a harmless warning. However, even this warning made the void too lively. On the 10th day, there was a great earthquake in the void. The new tenants had already familiarized themselves with the void of the origin world and began to develop this new place or do something else. Anyway, now that they were outside, they could see chaotic scenes of battle within 2 or 3 steps. The life forms at the bottom of the hierarchy were somewhat miserable because the void was now full of moving sources of explosions. Those celestial gods and Empyrean gods of origin were all potential moving disasters. They would start a fight with others after taking 2 or 3 steps, and they would probably have to lie in bed for a year and a half to recuperate after going out for a turn. Oh, anyone with some knowledge would know that there would be aftershocks after an earthquake, and there was no limit to the intensity of the aftershocks being smaller than the first one. After all, there were so many disasters in the void that they couldn't be explained by a simple earthquake and aftershocks. Those were moving sources of disasters that could easily blow an entire world group into the void. In fact, when the first life form in the timeline discovered the changes in the void and tried to go to other worlds, this chaos was already destined. Then, when the first small friction occurred, the other life forms also heard the news and began their journey of causing trouble in the void. No, it was a journey of stirring up shit in the void. Then, the life forms of the origin world also became active, but their numbers were still much smaller compared to the life forms that were forcibly dragged into the origin world. They were short of manpower. As the first major world in the void of the 8 elements realm, the realm of the gods was also probably the first major world in the Great Yuan realm. It became the place where countless extraterrestrial and extraterrestrial visitors descended. The battle was really going on day and night. A large number of celestial gods and Empyrean gods of origin fought excessively during the day, and a large number of Empyrean gods of origin fought even more fiercely at night. The most amazing thing was that in so many battles, none of them had anything to do with the realm of the gods. Well, that was nonsense. The army of the realm of the gods was still in the void far away from the realm of the gods, and they were slowly rushing back while carrying out their tasks. I Ching and Lady Green each took 2 days to solve the problems in the realm of the gods and the ancient imperial world, so that the low-level life forms would not be involved in the unknown war. The rest of the time was spent dealing with the light masses in other worlds near the realm of the gods, so that the progress was slow. In fact, most of the high-level battles took place at higher altitudes, or just outside the realm of the gods. Like what Yin Washing and Hui saw that day, it was relatively rare for energy shockwaves to explode directly on the ground. When the Great City Defense Formation sealed off the entire city, the people living in the city did not have any problems, and the movements they saw were also relatively small. It was not until the entire sky of the realm of the gods was covered by the flames of war that they noticed something was wrong. The realm of the gods was originally a more chaotic place compared to other worlds. Battles and whatnot were very common, even if the battle affected a large area. The sky was full of explosions, and it did not stop for the whole day. This was a little strange. When a large number of low-level life forms noticed this, it was already 11 or 12 days later. At that time, the mortal world that was lagging behind the news only half understood what was happening in the void. Then, they collectively sighed and discussed today's dishes and the neighbor's children. Even the gossipers who liked to talk from the east to the west of the city only talked about it as stories after a meal. The matters of the void were too far away from them, and it did not feel too real. As for the celestial gods who stood high above the clouds, overlooking the world, this was referring to their Lord Guardian and Lord Observer. One of them spent 20 hours a day sleeping, and the remaining 5 or 6 hours drowsily sleeping, as if he had not slept since the birth of the void. The other one was cultivating day and night with the help of his little angel. The stone lump in his stomach had started to move a few days ago, but it was not the kind of violent reaction he expected when he opened his mouth. Instead, it was the kind that ignored him. Sometimes, it would respond to him lazily in the morning, or in the afternoon, or in the evening, or even in the wee hours of the morning. Generally speaking, it would be too late for him to do anything about it by the time he realized that the stone was reacting, so he could only sit there in a daze all day long. Until now, he still could not figure out the pattern of that erratic thing. Now that the Guardian and the Observer were not in charge of anything. Anyway, the heavenly realm was peaceful for the time being. Those outsiders said that they came here to fight, but they actually treated the heavenly realm as a battlefield. If they were thrown into the depths of the void, they would still fight. However, Just because they were fighting at the edge of the heavenly realm, they thought that they had already been in the heavenly realm. If the heavenly gods in the heavenly realm knew about this, they would probably laugh their heads off. But actually, it was understandable. The heavenly realm was a continent the size of 4 to 5 galaxies pieced together. It was a world created by the first generation of great heavenly gods, and its fierce reputation had spread to hundreds of worlds in the timelines next to it. These outsiders thought that the people in the heavenly realm were ghosts and demons with 3 heads and 6 arms. This was probably the reason why they did not dare to invade the heavenly realm. But it was strange that they did not dare to mess around in the heavenly realm, but they dared to fight at the edge of the heavenly realm. Could it be that the heavenly gods in other worlds also liked to deceive themselves? This was Divine Land, the holy city of Divine Land. However, it was not one of the 4 holy cities that Yin Nuoxing knew. It was the holy city at the very center of the Divine Land. Right now, Divine Land was Divine Land. It was not divided into the northern wilderness, the eastern sea, the southern plains, the western regions, and so on. Oh, the eastern sea was still the eastern sea. It was the largest sea in the divine realm, much larger than the eastern sea after dozens of years. The holy city of Divine Land was probably the most lively place in the divine realm now that it was empty. There were only a few gods, most of them, and a lot of young people gathered there. Since they were warned by their elders not to go out of the city, this group of people, ranging from the mortal tier to the post-god tier, stayed in the city obediently. Watching the great battle above their heads was an indispensable time to pass the day. However, in the past 2 days, a group of strange young people deliberately made big news in the holy city in a high-profile manner. The lives of the divine realm, who had been bored for many days, suddenly found something fun to do. Regardless of their level, they were busy beating up those who were obviously not original life forms of the divine realm, but had sneaked into the holy city. As mentioned before, those who were brought by the post-god tier also felt that crossing worlds was as easy as going out for a stroll. Those who had sneaked into the city and deliberately made a scene were all young people. Perhaps they were the ones who had sneaked into the city. At first, they were very arrogant, but after they were beaten down, they were not convinced. After 2 minutes, a large group of outsiders were all tied up together. Suddenly, everyone's arrogance disappeared. "Oh, little toys, what's the matter? You know that we are too bored, so you came to find us some fun?" A young man in a white robe cracked his wrists as he looked lazily at the young men and women who were tied up in a pile in front of him. He had a harmless smile on his face, but the divine power that permeated his body made everyone know that this young man was a god. "Come, you. Yes, you. Don't look at others." He casually pointed at a person. Before that person could react, one of his students had already slipped over and dragged that person over. The young lad looked at the youth who was dragged over with a smile and said, "Young lad, you don't look too bad. Shiming was actually able to last a minute against our venerable god. Not bad. Not bad. What's your name? Where are you from?" The youth, who had been quite unyielding, was about to explode in anger when he heard those words. When he looked up and saw the young man in front of him, he was shocked by the divine power, and his face paled. "Jiang Yuan, from the Sanqing continent. We seem to have heard the name of this continent 2 or 3 times. Oh, yes, you. Little one, go and pull those 2 out. That's right. Hey, you 3 are together?" The youth and the other 2 looked at each other and shook their heads vigorously. "What are you doing here?" "Why? We've heard of the name of the number 1 great world. We wanted to come here for a long time to take a look. About 10 days ago, your world suddenly appeared next to ours, so our elders brought us here." The young divinity scratched his head. He had heard about the matters of the void from his elders, but he didn't know the details. He didn't know what was happening in the void, and his elders didn't mention it either. They only told him about it. He casually asked a few more questions, then asked a few more people, but he still didn't get the answers he wanted. The young divinity sighed and waved his hand. "Forget it, I'm not playing anymore. Take them to the prison of the holy city and keep them in check. Keep them quiet. Bastards, you better remember this. People of my lineage will descend upon this world. We will make you pay for today's humiliation." Some of the people in the group shouted in dissatisfaction while kicking their legs and swinging their heads. A disciple of a divine venerable scratched his head and slapped the chattering heavenly deity's face, causing him to faint. "You talk too much. So noisy. Master, are you sure it's all right?" One of the disciples clasped his hands at the young divinity and said softly, "I don't know where our elders went. The divine realm is empty, and there are many divinities fighting in the outer space. I'm worried that they will cause trouble here once they find out that our disciples are trapped." The young deity flicked his sleeves and said, "Don't worry, they won't be able to cause any trouble. All cities in the celestial realm have the highest level of defense, unless those people are crazy enough to attack the celestial realm. If that happens, our Lord Protector won't sit idly by." Of course, he knew where his elders and the divinities had gone, but it was best not to announce it. He saw his disciple looking at the battle in the sky with worry. He grinned and reached out his hand to ruffle his disciple's hair. "Don't worry, kid. At least for now, nothing will happen in the divine realm. We just have to take care of ourselves and protect our own place. Don't let too many outsiders come in and cause trouble. I think the realm of the gods has become a complete mess." On a small hidden mountain peak, the little angel sat on the edge of a cliff and looked at the entire realm of the gods. Through the observers I provided by the Unua planet, she leisurely swung her slender legs and looked at the entire world bustling with activity. It was so lively that she couldn't help but mutter. Yin Nuashing was kneeling under a tree. She opened her eyes and looked at the bustling sky of the divine realm. After thinking for a while, she closed her eyes again. "It's fine. We and I are monitoring the divine realm. Right now, no one has really entered the divine realm. This morning, a group of divinities left their people behind and left in a hurry. There aren't many of them, and they are scattered all over the divine realm. There's nothing to worry about." The little angel flapped her wings. "Monitoring?" She looked at him in disbelief. One of them was sleeping all day, and the other was cultivating all day. How did these two guys monitor the divine realm? Were these two fellows reliable or not? She subconsciously ran her finger across the ring on her finger. She immediately revealed a warm and beautiful smile. "Yes, they're very reliable." The little angel stood up from the cliff and lightly floated to Yun Nuashing's side. Her wings brushed his cheek. Then she turned around and sat down next to him. One of her wings curled around half of his body. "What's wrong?" Yin Nuashing opened his eyes and looked at her with a smile. The little angel shook her head. After thinking for a while, she tilted her head and leaned on his shoulder. "Ever since we put on the rings that day, the atmosphere between the two of them had become strange. She seemed to have completely immersed herself in this role, and he seemed to have become more indulgent of her. Or rather, indulgent of Ming even more. How much longer do you need to deal with the things on your body?" She looked at him and whispered, "I want to go out and play. I want to see what the void is like now." Yin Nuashing looked up, pursed his lips, and said, "Another 4 or 5, hearing that he didn't say the next word for a long time. She couldn't help but continue. "Days? Months?" She was speechless. It could also be 4 or 5 years, or even 4 or 5 eras. She took a deep breath and looked up for a while. She felt that it was better not to say anything. Looking at her dejected look, Yin Nuashing couldn't help but laugh. She looked up and said, "It will take a long time to completely solve it. But actually, I can move now. Don't get too excited. Considering the current situation of the void, I have to completely suppress it. In these days of fighting, I have found a way, but it's not a complete solution. I can only cover it up, but I can also take you out to play." The little angel was delighted. She revealed a soft smile and rubbed her face against his. However, although she wanted to go out to play, she really didn't know where to go with the chaotic state of the void. Moreover, the little angel was blushing a little. Asking where to go to play now was like asking where to go after a wedding or a honeymoon. She shouldn't think about it anymore. She accepted this unintentional gesture on her behalf. She shouldn't think too much about it. That was her business, and she was very self-aware. After a few words, there was nothing else to talk about. The little angel leaned on his shoulder, her wings fluttering gently in the wind. The sacred and holy light on her body calmed Yin Nuoxing's restless heart a little. He was actually a little anxious these days. He didn't lie to her. He did have a way to cover up the origin energy and pretend that nothing had happened. He just didn't know if there would be a second effect if he did so. Yin Nuoxing opened his eyes and made sure that the little angel was asleep. He then lifted his left hand from the wrapping of his wings. A stream of energy flowed from his body to his palm. It was a red energy with a bright silver in the center like a core. Moreover, there was a faint aura of destruction circulating in it. He believed that just by circulating this energy throughout his body, he would become a mobile weapon that would shatter wherever he went. That energy was indeed his. It was the product of a part of his original energy that had shifted in a certain direction. Originally, his energy should have been a fusion of black and silver. The black was the product of the fusion of his own energy with the element of annihilation, while the other half of the silver was the observer's energy. Originally, he could have chosen to use one or both at will, but now, it's completely mixed. Even if I use the observer form, I will still have the smell of this energy. Yin Nuoxing couldn't help but sigh. The heavenly destruction, God's divine blood brand, was the only reason he had been able to control the origin energy of the heavenly destruction god. The origin energy that remained in his body had been barely refined, so it was normal for him to obtain a portion of the destruction aura. Furthermore, this destruction aura was slightly different from the destruction aura that was normally contained in large-scale destruction aura. For example, if he used a large-scale energy attack, 30% of the energy would turn into the power of destruction, and the remaining 70% would be the original energy, the energy of destruction, and other blended energies. The heavenly god of destruction's energy, even though only a small part of it had changed its form, was still very different from ordinary energy. It was filled with the will of destruction and the aura of destruction. When 100% of the energy was used, it would return 14 to 15% of the power of destruction, including the energy of destruction, and other energies. Without exception, all of them were tainted with the aura of destruction. As expected of the god of destruction, just that energy alone was filled with the aura of destruction. The transformed energy in my body already has all the characteristics of the god of destruction. The only difference now is the strength of the energy. Speaking of which, the energy of the element of destruction has also been integrated, and it is suppressed. Unbelievable. I have never seen an energy that can suppress the element of destruction. With a thought, Yin Nuoxing let the energy soar through his fingers. The only thing that was worth rejoicing about now was that he could still control the energy. He blankly let the energy float for a long time. Just as he was about to put it away, he suddenly had a naughty idea. With a devilish smile, he clenched his fist and the energy disappeared. Well, I'll just take it as a little deterrent, so that you won't fight recklessly down here and disturb me. I'll kill you all one by one. At the edge of the realm of the gods, there was a vast battlefield. All kinds of high divinity energies were churning and shattering here, piercing through the void and the sea of time. Strange energy phenomena appeared frequently, and even the illusions became energy attacks that lunged at the battlefield. However, they were easily torn apart by the energy storms that filled the air. Several, dozens, and even hundreds of people were fighting in a melee, messing up the entire sky of the realm of the gods. Fortunately, this was the first major realm. The factors such as space and other factors were sturdy enough that it would not be easily torn to the point where it could not be restored. Even in the most violent area of the battle, the pure void had just been broken out, and the void had not been torn apart yet. Amidst the vast star domain, stars shattered, scattering countless fragments everywhere. Broken corpses and broken bones floated in the starry sky, being restored to energy by the eruption of energy on the battlefield. Those who had truly died would release a huge energy storm or energy anomaly, scaring away anyone who approached. There were also many fragments of weapons. One after another, heavenly god-tier powerhouses crossed the star domain, expanding the battlefield without limit, and expanding it even further. Suddenly, a small scarlet ball of energy appeared in the star field like an inconspicuous water ball. It was only the size of a wash basin. After the ball of energy appeared, the silver spot in its center suddenly swelled until it completely merged with the scarlet ball of energy. Then, boom, a storm that contained boundless destructive energy suddenly erupted at the peak of the myriad god realm. Those who were engaged in battle all turned their gazes in shock. The speed of the energy explosion wasn't very fast, but it was enough to make everyone tremble in fear. Without exception, all of them gave up on fighting. They screamed and yelled as they ran for their lives. Those who weren't swept into the destructive storm couldn't even unleash the abnormal phenomenon of a god's fall. This energy is too terrifying. Who is here? All of the heavenly gods and origin heavenly god-level life forms in this area felt a chill run down their spines when they saw this violent and terrifying scene. The chill caused their blood to stop flowing. This shocking energy seemed to be attacking indiscriminately. Furthermore, it did not belong to any one of them. It's a powerhouse from the realm of the gods. Suddenly, someone screamed in horror, bringing the silent crowd back to their senses. When they heard this sentence clearly, they felt a chill run down their backs. The powerhouses from the realm of the gods are warning us. That's right, it must be so. Someone could not help but say. They had been making a ruckus here for many days, but they did not see any powerhouses from the realm of the gods. They originally thought that they did not want to bother with them, but now it seemed that they had not bothered anyone yet. If they really did provoke them, the consequences would be unimaginable. After a short moment of uproar, the place suddenly became deathly quiet again. Even the most impulsive person did not recklessly rush up to fight with anyone. Everyone, hundreds of people, looked at each other and remained silent for a long time. Here comes the question, should we fight or not? Chapter 1277. The battle in the realm of the gods had ended temporarily. The next morning, the primordial life forms in the realm of the gods were relieved when they saw that there were no more energy explosions in the sky. They were really worried that a heavenly god-tier powerhouse would fall to the ground and wake up the next day to find that everything within 1,000,000 miles of the city had turned into a wasteland. Or maybe he would wake up the next day to find that there was only a wall left in his house, or maybe he would never wake up again. The ending of the battle made countless people cheer for a while before returning to their normal lives and doing their own things. However, with this incident as a precedent, no one would leave the city for a long time. If there was a first time, there would naturally be a second time. It would not be good if they could not return home because of the second battle. There were not many casualties in this battle, but there were many injured. There were only about 10 heavenly god-tier powerhouses who died in the battle. Half of them were swept into the destructive storm. As long as they did not die, they would be able to recover. However, none of this had anything to do with the realm of the gods. After all, no one from the realm of the gods had participated in the battle. As for the reason why the battle ended, they only knew that an extremely powerful realm of the gods' powerhouse had beaten them up. As for who it was, no one knew. The realm of the gods' powerhouses wanted to know more about this, but the native cultivators of the realm of the gods could probably guess who it was. Well, although it was a little crooked, their Lord Guardian was still drowsy when the incident happened. However, since not many people knew the Lord Observer, and the Lord Observer did not care if anyone knew him, they could just assume that it was the former. The realm of the gods knew about this, but the realm of the gods' powerhouses had to suffer. They would never know about this if they did not come to the realm of the gods. On the small mountain, Yin Nuashing was still sitting under the tree with the little angel. They had been in this position for 3 whole days. The latter seemed to be sleeping as if she wanted to cultivate with him. During these 3 days, she would occasionally wake up and hug Yin Nuashing intimately for a while before falling asleep again. Yin Nuashing knew that this little girl was actually cultivating as well. However, she seemed to need her consciousness to return to that world when she cultivated, so she acted as if she was disconnected from this world. 3 days passed very quickly. Yin Nuashing had almost finished dealing with the ball of energy. In fact, he had used an extra day to refine the origin energy 6 times. When he felt that his energy had changed to a certain extent, he needed to spend some time to familiarize himself with it. Then, he began the cover action that he had mentioned. In fact, it was very simple, just like what he was doing now. All the divine blood marks on his body appeared. When he first took them out, he was stunned for a while, because when he was still in the void rift, he thought that the marks had all been transferred to the key. He did not expect that they were still in his body. At this moment, he was forcing the origin energy into the divine blood marks. Throughout the whole process, he kept a close eye on the divine blood marks. He was actually a little worried that this would cause some changes to the divine blood marks. Yin Nuashing lowered his head and looked at the golden red marks. The corners of his eyes twitched. His worries were confirmed. The divine blood marks seemed to have absorbed a little of the origin energy and changed a little. The edges of the divine blood marks that looked like delicate feathers had now become, well, he could not tell what it was. It probably looked like something like armor. Well, actually, it did not look like it. Anyway, he knew that it was a pattern. He could not tell what it was exactly. When the origin energy was forced into the divine blood marks, it was indeed a little bit less. That little bit of energy was probably the reason for the changes. There was still a large amount of energy stored in it. He could feel that the energy was flowing along his entire right hand, shoulder, and back. The energy was still very large, so large that he was a little scared, especially when he saw the divine blood marks on his back seem to grow and spread out. He was even worried that he would be swallowed by the marks. However, after thinking carefully, he was not flustered. The divine pattern of the divine blood marks also covered the entire body. When it was fully spread out, it was much larger than he imagined. It was like a tree rooted in the void. He raised the energy in his hand. It was red with a bright silver light in the center. It did not seem to be any different from the previous 3 days. The only difference was that the red color had deepened a lot. The previous 3 days were considered light red, but now it was more like a pure red. The color was gradually changing to a deeper color, and it might become a crimson color in the end. Buzz! A weak energy appeared in his senses. Yin Nuashing's ears twitched. He raised his head and casually put away the energy in his hand. He felt that someone had passed through the energy barrier and entered the space here. It was the breath of an acquaintance. He closed his eyes and continued to do his own thing. He only paid attention to the acquaintance. He first went to the place where Hui was. When he saw the ladder, he was stunned. The energy moved a little, showing that his emotions were slightly fluctuating. He stood there for a moment. His emotions fluctuated for a while. Suddenly, he left the building and came to where they were. Yin Nuashing opened his eyes. It seemed that the little guy had something to do. Well, he was almost done with his business anyway. Let's see what the little guy wanted to do. I Ching saw that Hui was still sleeping and could not be woken up for a while. He was a little distressed. He sensed a little and found that there was another person in this space. He was a little happy and quickly went in the direction of the ladder. After crossing a small forest, he saw Yin Nuashing and the little angel, who was snuggling with her. He was a little stunned and hesitated. He did not know if he should go over. Come over. A soft voice rang in his mind. I Ching shrank his head and quickly walked over. He stood at the side of the two and saluted. Lord Feng. Yin Nuashing nodded slightly. Hui is busy. He won't wake up for a while. You can either wait for a few days, or, if there's something important, just tell me. I'll pass on the message. I Ching pondered for a moment. Since this was the observer in front of him, telling him was the right thing to do. There was no problem. He thought about it and saluted. It's actually a problem in the void. These days, we followed Lord Huey's orders to solve the problems in other worlds. Those worlds have powerful beings stationed there. But it's not a problem, and it's not necessarily a fight. It's just that when we told them about the abyssal death shroud and the purpose of our trip, whether it was after the fight or sitting down calmly to talk about it in detail, they all resist or directly refuse. Chase me out? Or? Yin Nuashing twirled a strand of hair. She thought that she was used to twirling her hair. But when she took a closer look, it was the silver hair of the little angel. She could not help but be stunned. Chase me out. I Ching was a little troubled. Lord Hui said that we can't act recklessly. We've tried our best to use a gentler method. But I've heard reports from others who came back from the edge of the upper realm. Although they've encountered resistance, they've also met very rational and far-sighted people who understood the situation. Although they didn't directly promise to help, they at least had the intention. Why is it so strange here? Yin Nuashing tilted her head and glanced at him. I Ching frowned, as if he was thinking and reflecting on something. Just as we said, this was a young Empyrean god of origin. He was a little too young to see through many things. He thought for a moment and said, whether it was those who chased you out or those who directly agreed, they already understood the current situation. But it's useless to just talk about it. After all, the abyssal death shroud had nothing to do with them in the early stages. As long as they don't face the true power and danger of that thing, no matter how wise they are, they can't really understand what kind of existence that thing is. Those who fly into a rage out of humiliation may not necessarily refuse to help. Those who hurriedly agree to help may not necessarily contribute the most. It's all an illusion. It's all appearances. Everything can only be seen clearly on the battlefield. Patient contact and explanation may sound fine, but the actual efficiency is unknown. Your patience may not necessarily lead to the same result. As I Ching listened, his furrowed brows slowly relaxed. He rolled his eyes and seemed to understand something. What did Qing Jun and the others do? I Ching was stunned for a moment and pondered for a moment. Brother Qing, after Lord Hui gave him a warning, he restrained himself a little, but he still went straight in. Well, now you guys do this. Ignore Hui. He is too indecisive. No, he is not indecisive. He is just not clear about what needs to be done at the moment. He mistakenly thought that going to each world and gathering everyone would be enough. You don't have to do this. Yin Nuashing shook his head, looked straight at him, and said, you should just barge into that world and look for the people you can talk to. The bigger the commotion, the better. Regardless of whether you want to beat them up or something else, it's fine as long as you can establish the conditions for an equal conversation or convince them to trust you. Then, spread the information that you want to tell them. Don't just tell them everything. There's so many worlds that you can talk to them like they're dead. Once you've told them the most important thing, you can leave without mentioning anything else. You can even directly grab the world core and use the information torrent to inform them of everything. However, that would greatly disrupt the life forms at the bottom of the hierarchy and cause great chaos. You might also have to bear a lot of unnecessary hostility, so it's best that you leave after you've told them what you want to tell them. I Ching's eyes widened. Don't mention anything? Don't even mention our things? Don't mention anything. Your every move has already brought them what they want to know. Whether it is a unified world or not, there will always be people there who understand your actions. That is enough. Yin Nuashing shook his head. What we need to do is not to ally with anyone, nor to gather forces. Instead, we need to announce all of this and everything that the void is currently facing to the world, so that they would not be clueless when the calamity strikes. Furthermore, we should not start from the upper realm, but from the middle realm. That is where the war would truly begin, the first battlefield and the first line of defense. As for when the war begins, everything will be clear. Everything that happens then will be real. The war and the calamity will erupt right before their eyes. Those who want to be cowards and chase after them won't have much of an effect. Those who want to charge and break through the enemy lines will do so even if you don't tell them, because you have already told them everything. As for whether they believe it or not, those who receive the news will not be idiots. Even if they don't believe it verbally, they will still take a look at the void of the middle plane. I Ching came to a realization. It doesn't matter if what we say is true or false. Those guys will judge for themselves and see for themselves whether it's true or not. So, what we need to do is to let everyone know about it, right? Yin Nuoxing nodded. I Ching was very excited as he imagined it for a while. When he fully understood, he suddenly jumped up in excitement. I'll go tell the others right now. If you're worried about the future, then do your best to leave a good impression on the people of other worlds. That way, when the war starts, we'll be able to discuss an alliance. At least I won't be too concerned, Yin Nuoxing casually said. I Ching clasped his fist heavily. Yes, Lord Observer. Then, the air became silent. I Ching abruptly regained his senses and realized that his respectful greeting seemed a little. Cold sweat immediately broke out. Am I going to die? He turned his head stiffly, only to find that Yin Nuoxing had only nodded faintly. She waved her hand without looking back. All right, go. She doesn't seem to care at all. I Ching stuck out his tongue and hurriedly slipped away. Yin Nuoxing did not care at all because he felt that his identity should have been known long ago. Based on his quarrel with Hui, he should have been recognized long ago. Anyway, he did not deliberately hide his identity. The reason why the world did not know that he was the observer was because he was too lazy to say it. If they recognized him, then so be it. If not, then so be it. Anyway, it would not affect anything. It was just in line with his identity as the observer, hiding in the dark. After spending another day to completely eliminate the source energy, Yin Nuoxing left a note to inform Hui, who was still resting. He also set up a few more layers of protection. Then, he agreed to the request of the little angel a few days ago to take it to the void to play. Although he did not know what was so fun in the chaotic and boundless void, well, as long as it was happy. In the next few years, the chaos in the void evolved to the extreme as he expected. Everywhere he went, he could see chaotic energy bursting out. The realm of the gods was peaceful. After the shock, there was a year of peace. Then, there were beings heading to the realm of the gods again. But this time, they were not jumping around on top of the realm of the gods. It was as if they were really on a pilgrimage to the realm of the gods. Although no one knew what these gods were thinking, it did not matter. Many of the warriors of the realm of the gods had returned. Those who were directly controlled by the guardians and those from the ancient imperial world continued to complete their tasks in the void. Their focus had already shifted from the upper plane to the middle plane. Yin Nuoxing and the others did not expect that they would be gone for decades. The main reason was that Hui did not show any signs of waking up. At first, Yin Nuoxing thought that Hui was resting and recuperating. But looking at the situation, Yin Nuoxing guessed that Hui might be preparing. He was preparing to reactivate the protection of the first great deity. For this, he needed to sleep for a period of time to prepare. As for the realm of the gods, it was probably the quietest place in the entire void. Even the Saint Spirit realm and the Chanyuan realm had some troubles. Most of them were brought there by outsiders. The shock of the attack, that time, did not keep the realm of the gods quiet for such a long time. The main reason was that many of the gods in the realm of the gods had returned. They managed to control the situation in time. As far as Yin Nuoxing knew, the realm of the gods was actually very lively now. It was already lively. Now, with the resonance of the timeline, there were a lot of neighboring worlds. The void was as lively as ever. Yin Nuoxing had taken over many things while Hui was in hibernation. Based on the feedback from I Ching and the others, their activities were going smoothly. They had informed many worlds over the past few decades. However, those worlds were still a very small part of the void, so small that it was difficult. That's right. Yin Nuoxing had suggested that some of the worlds that were already aware and would cooperate to help spread the information. It took decades just to let those worlds know about the information. It was hard to imagine how many world-like clusters existed in the void now, and how many worlds with life existed in those light clusters. Oh, by the way, there were some worlds that immediately agreed to cooperate after learning of the Union. Those were actually special worlds, unified worlds that were only above average in terms of strength in the void and deeply aware of the danger of the abyssal death shroud. They might have already known about the abyssal death shroud before I Ching and the others sent people there, perhaps having come into contact with it and being aware of its horrors, which was why they showed such cooperation when I Ching and the others brought that information. Apart from those, there were not many worlds that showed such cooperation. Still, it did not matter. When reality crushed the void and stuck to their faces, those people would know what reality was like. Now, let those people be immersed in self-deceiving or self-deceiving. Furthermore, according to I Ching, even if some worlds showed resistance, there would still be many living beings who carried their own ideals to explore that terrible place. Perhaps reality was not as despairing as I Ching had said. As for the people on the void front line, they were still so salted fish. In Yin Nuoxing's eyes, they were salted fish. They had their own little tricks in the dark, but he was too lazy to pay attention to them. Speaking of which, the void front line was not under his control. It was only because of the information from I Ching and Qing Jun that he reluctantly used his brain to think about it for a minute, and then left it at that. In fact, according to Yin Nuoxing's calculations, I Ching and the others could not and did not need to thoroughly inform the entire void. It was likely that it would be too late. Before he arrived, the life forms of other worlds might have already known about the existence of that thing and realized that it was not the scenery of the origin world. Either actively or passively, the active part was to understand it now, while the passive part was to wait until the beginning of the war in the future. Speaking of the origin world, it had been a few decades since then. Basically, all the living beings in the void knew where they had come from. They were not sure where the origin world had suddenly appeared next to them. They expressed great shock and then fought even more fiercely in the void. As for the past few decades, Yin Nuoxing and the little angel had been traveling outside in the name of traveling, inspecting the entire void and occasionally throwing 2 undiscovered upper and middle planes back to them. They had never returned to the realm of the gods. In the past few decades, the 2 people had been traveling hand in hand. Whether Yin Nuoxing was proud or did not dare to admit it, their relationship had indeed been slowly warming up. The saying of love over time once again had an effect on the heavenly god whose chain of heart had failed. Even though he had repeatedly emphasized that he did not have feelings for her, in the face of the teasing and coquettish behavior of the little angel, he was still very honest, blushing. She and the little angel had indeed left a shadow in his heart. He could no longer tell whether the person he cared about was her or the little angel, because these 2 people were basically the same person. After a few decades, Yin Nuoxing had also successfully refined the power of origin completely. His energy had turned crimson as he expected, a darker reddish-black color. He felt that he was about to be summoned by the heavenly god of destruction. Boom! In the void, a violent burst of destructive energy suddenly erupted. The crimson and silver energy blended together and swept away a large area of the void. A few seconds later, the wildly spreading energy storm shrank and turned into a huge, mysterious symbol that was engraved in the void. Then, it slowly disappeared. Phew! Yin Nuoxing breathed a sigh of relief. He waved at a nearby meteorite in the void. Little girl, let's go. A holy figure appeared behind him, accompanied by gentle whispers. The moment she appeared, she naturally wrapped her arms around his neck from behind and pressed her soft body against his. She smiled gently and asked, "Where are we going next?" Yin Nuoxing had long since gotten used to this. He also habitually reached out and pulled the little angel's wings over his body. As he did so, he turned around and walked into the void. Yes, let me think about it. I've been playing in the middle planes for a long time. How about going back to the upper planes to play? There was a gentle smile on the little angel's face. She gently rubbed her face against his. Okay, the 2 of them disappeared into the void. However, the void didn't calm down. The huge, mysterious red symbol that they had just left behind suddenly flickered. A moment later, a dim crimson sea of light lit up in the void in the distance. It seemed to be responding to the 2 of them across the void. You're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.